Chapter 194. But they've been married for so many years. I'm worried. Dian looked anxious. Worried that she won't go with you? Seeing Dian nod, Song Qing-shu said, "That's a possibility. It's a common problem with women. But now that you've made some progress with the Divine Reflection Sutra, don't you know to get her back first? She'll figure out in time. Trust me, I know women better than you. This is the right choice." Is that possible? Diyun's eyes flashed with hope, but it quickly dimmed. But I don't even know where Wan Gui took them. Song Qing-shu handed a waist token to him. Recently, I have been establishing a sticky rod division, which will be responsible for gathering intelligence in the world. If Brother D is interested in joining, you can bring this token to the Swallow capital city to look for me. With the help of the sticky rod division, we should be able to help you find your junior sister and even help you take revenge. Dian took the token, thinking about what he would do if his junior sister and the others came back after he left. He hesitated. Brother D, you can think about it carefully for a while. Song Qing-shu patted his shoulder. Oh, that's right. Here's some silver. If you come to the capital one day, you'll inevitably be short of money. Then he stuffed 2 ingots into Di Jio's hands. I can't take this. Dian hurriedly refused with a slightly embarrassed expression. Brother D, I know you have a backbone. You can go to the capital on your own, but it'll take a lot of time. With this silver, you can buy a good horse and save at least a month's time. If anything were to happen to your junior sister during this period of time, it will be too late for you to regret it. A man's pitiful and respectable pride. Song Qing-shu sighed and firmly shoved the silver into Di Yun's hands. Di Yun froze, tears welling up in his eyes. In this world, other than Brother Ding and junior sister, no one had ever treated him so well. Holding back his tears, he choked out, "Thank you, Prince Song, for your advice. I'll accept it." Di Yun is indeed simple. He's moved to tears with just a few dozen silver. It's clear how much he suffered. Song Qing-shu cupped his fists and said, Brother D, I have something important to do, so I'll take my leave first. Take care, brother. At this moment, Dian had 1,000 words in his heart. However, as he was not good with words, he did not know what to say. He could only watch as Song Qing-shu's voice disappeared into the distance. Last time when I fled from Blackwood Cliff with Dongfang, I didn't have a chance to go to the King of Medicine's village when I passed by Dongting Lake. Since it's on the way to the north, I should go to see if the poison in Hu Fei's body has been detoxified. I wonder how Icy Snow is doing now. Song Qing-shu made up his mind and galloped in the direction of White Horse Temple at Dongting Lake. Song Qing-shu felt a sense of familiarity when he saw the field of malevolent blood dwarf chestnuts. He remembered the method Chung Ling-su had taught him in the past. He plucked a blue flower from a flower bed by the roadside and wore it on his body. He slowly walked towards the manor of the King of Medicine. Brother Hu Fei, you're such a big idiot. Until now, you still can't tell the difference between Gelsemium elegans and traction poison. Let me explain it to you one more time. Chapter 193. Inner Charm. Listen to me carefully. Both Gelsemium elegans and traction poison can make the poison die a horrible death. Therefore, the poisoner usually has a deep hatred for the target. That's why he would use such a vicious poison. However, there is a difference between the two poisons. Gelsemium elegans can make the poisoned person's limbs weak. They will talk nonsense, see double images, have diarrhea, and vomit. Their abdomen will be unbearable. Finally, they will die of respiratory paralysis after 4 to 6 hours. Gelsemium elegans is vicious because the poisoned person's consciousness is always clear during the whole process. Even after their breathing stops, their heartbeat can still continue for a short period of time. The poisoned person can completely feel the pain of death from the beginning to the end. It's like the pain of having one's intestines broken. That's how it got its name. During the Warring States period, Han Feizi committed suicide by taking hook kiss. He died a horrible death. As for traction poison, it's also very famous in history. Back then, Liu, the later ruler of southern Tang, was sentenced to death by Emperor Taizong because of the beauty Yu. After his death, his body was severely deformed. According to the records of the predecessors, the front and the feet are in the same position, like traction poison. That's how it got its name. The original name of traction poison is strychnine. It can cause a strong impulse in the spinal cord of the human body. The poisoned person's whole body will spasm violently, accompanied by staring eyes, tightly clenching teeth, and other symptoms. Until death, there will be a strange, evil smile on their face. This is similar to the Xingqiu sect's 3 laughs free and unfettered powder. I suspect that one of the ingredients of Old Freak Ding's 3 laughs free and unfettered powder is this traction poison. Clap, clap, clap. Song Qingshu clapped his hands as he walked forward. He heard Cheng Ling Su talking loudly as soon as he was nearby. He stopped and listened for a long time. His heart was filled with amazement. Ling Su, you're so young, but you know all kinds of poisons like the back of your hand. It's really admirable. Big brother Song. When Hu Fei saw Song Qingshu, her face lit up with joy. She dashed over and jumped on his body. Hey, you're so heavy. Song Qingshu hugged her and pretended to grin. Little Ling Su, come here and let Uncle hug you. After putting Hu Fei down, Song Qingshu opened his arms and called Cheng Ling Su. Cheng Ling Su spat and glared at him with a red face. Forget it. You're my little Hu Fei's woman. I won't take advantage of you. Song Qingshu's words made the 2 children blush. Aren't you ashamed? What do you mean by your little Hu Fei? It seems that you really have an ulterior motive for anti-icy snow. Cheng Ling Su was unhappy that he called Hu Fei brother, but she called him uncle. She felt that she was 1 generation lower than him. She was very depressed. You're really sharp-tongued. Song Qingshu looked at Hu Fei and smiled. When you're married, you're going to suffer in the future. Who wants to marry that ugly freak? When she heard Cheng Ling Su say that he coveted her mother, Hu Fei was a little unhappy. However, when she heard what Song Qingshu said, she immediately exploded. Stupid Hu Fei, I hate you. Cheng Ling Su's eyes immediately turned red. She wiped her eyes and ran into the house while sobbing. Little Hu Fei, how can you hurt a girl's heart like this? Song Qingshu advised as an experienced person. Besides, a girl changes 18 times between womanhood and womanhood. Ling Su is only at the age of 193. She's only at the age of 193 now. If she becomes a great beauty in a few years, won't you regret it? Treat her well when she's the least confident. She'll be grateful to you for the rest of her life. This business is definitely not profitable. What if she doesn't change in a few years? Hu Fei asked seriously. Look at her now. If she wants to grow into a great beauty, I'm not as confident as you are. It doesn't matter if she's not beautiful. There are only lazy women in this world. There are no ugly women. When the time comes, I'll teach her some makeup skills and dress her up properly. She'll definitely make you fall for her. Song Qingshu put his arm around little Hu Fei's shoulder, and the 2 of them walked into the villa. I have to remind you, although little Ling Su isn't very pretty, she's very smart. When I look at her waist and buttocks when she walks, she's 1 in a million. When she grows up, she'll definitely be a gift for men. Don't miss it. I say, Brother Song, I'm only 8 years old. You're telling me this now. Aren't you afraid of teaching me the wrong things? If my mother hears this, she'll scold you to death. Little Hu Fei said gloomily. We're brothers for life. I'm just thinking about you and being honest with you. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. He looked around and asked quietly, By the way, is your mother here? I was wondering how long you could hold back before asking. Little Hu Fei pouted and said straightforwardly, She's not here. She's not here. Song Qingshu was stunned. Where did she go? A few months ago. She came to see me once and then left. I think she went to investigate Murong Jingyue's whereabouts. Little Hu Fei answered. Murong Jingyue. Aren't the Murong family investigating him? Song Qingshu asked in confusion. Suddenly, he looked worried. Murong Jingyue is skilled in martial arts and good at using poison. I'm worried that your mother is in danger. You have a conscience. Little Hu Fei rolled her eyes at him. My mother's martial arts are not inferior to my father's. Last time, it was only because Murong Jingyue was familiar with her moves, and I was a burden that my mother lost her mind and lost to him. I heard that you taught her the white python whip technique. My mother was very skilled in it the last time she came to see me. As long as she's careful when she encounters Murong Jingwe, she should be able to protect herself. I see. Song Qing-shu was slightly relieved. However, he still couldn't hide the disappointment on his face when he heard that Icy Snow was not at the King of Medicine Manor. Brother Song, this is where you're wrong. Are you unhappy to see me? Why are you putting on such an expression? Little Hu Fei bumped him with her shoulder. Song Qing-shu came back to his senses and chuckled. All right, let's go back to your marriage. Were we just now? By the way, speaking of Ling Su's inner charm, I didn't do anything to her because of you. If you're sure that you don't like her, I'm going to make a move. The lowly grooming plan? Just thinking about it makes me excited. Song Qing-shu rubbed his hands as he spoke. His expression was very serious. Perverted. Little Hu Fei immediately panicked. You had designs on my mother, and I let it go on account of your good character. But now you're even having designs on little sister Ling Su. Yo, Song Qing-shu smiled meaningfully. I've tested you out, haven't I? You even said that you're not interested in her. Little Hu Fei stubbornly said, it's just a cat and a dog. If they stay together for a long time, they'll have feelings for each other, let alone a person. When the two of them walked into the house, Chung Ling Su happened to hear what he said. She was so angry that she turned around and did not look at the two of them again. Poison Hand King of Medicine chuckled. It's been a long time. Prince Song is full of energy now. It seems that your injuries have healed. Greetings, Master Wu Chun. Song Qing-shu bowed sincerely inside. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to Master's guidance on the trip to Gusu that I found a way to treat my injuries. I've heard about it from Lady Hu a few months ago. Prince Song, you don't have to thank me. This is your own opportunity. Poison Hand King of Medicine smiled and shook his head. Master, how's the detoxification in my little brother's body? After the two of them chatted for a while, Song Qing-shu pointed at Hu Fei and asked, Chapter 195. Young Master, don't worry. Fear was born with a strong body. Coupled with my meticulous care, most of the poison in his body has been removed. There is still some remaining poison that needs time to be diluted. The Poison Hand King of Medicine looked at Hu Fei dotingly. He must be quite satisfied with this disciple of his. All right, did a lady with the surname Fong come to look for you recently? Song Qing-shu recalled that he had asked Fong Yi to bring his letter to the Poison Hand King of Medicine to cure the poison of the leopard embryo tendon easing pill and took the opportunity to ask. There was indeed a Miss Fong who came. Master Wu Chun pondered for a moment and said, however, the poison of the leopard embryo tendon easing pill is too strange. Although I have some ideas, I need time to test my guesses. I'm unable to develop an antidote in a short period of time. She left in disappointment when she heard that. Big Brother Song, don't you have too many female confidants? Little Hu Fei, who was at the side, said in a strange tone. You're not even my lover. Why are you being jealous? Song Qing-shu smacked his head and teased. Hu Fei's breathing was stifled. However, she could not say that she was fighting for her mother and could only sit there sulking. Other than that Miss Fong, there was another lady who came to look for you. Seeing her sweetheart at a disadvantage, Chung Ling Su subconsciously spoke up to help him. Another lady? Song Qing-shu went through all the women he knew, but could not think of who it was. She claimed to be your wife and came to the King of Medicine Manor twice. The first time was not long after you and Lady who left for Gusu. Brother Hu Fei and I noticed that she did not come with good intentions and tricked her to go to the northeast. However, she came back not long ago. It was probably to take revenge on me and Brother Hu Fei. She attacked us the moment she saw us. Chung Ling Su recounted the entire story like a machine gun. Brother Song, your wife is so fierce. Hu Fei thought. No wonder Brother Song likes my mother. Although his wife is also very beautiful, she has a fierce face. She's not as gentle and considerate as my mother. Besides, my mother's appearance is not worse than hers. Seeing that you are sitting here calmly, she must have suffered a loss again, but her martial arts are clearly far better than yours. Hearing that it was Zhou Zhua, Song Qing-shu's expression was rather complicated. She thought to herself, The relationship between the two of us can be made into a melodramatic romance drama. First, she let me down, then I let her down. Then, she hunted me down, then I killed her. With such a debt of sin, plus all kinds of scenes of the original wife becoming a mistress, we're just short of a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship to occupy the prime slot. Of course, it would be a disgrace if our king of Medicine Village had to rely on force to protect ourselves, Chang Ling-su said proudly. She was poisoned? What happened next? Song Qing-shu was startled and asked worriedly. Dead, Chang Ling-su said while munching on melon seeds. She dared to challenge our Medicine King manner. If we let her go back alive and the news gets out, there will be an endless stream of people coming to us for revenge in the future. Let's give her a little something. There is no cure for Xing Haitang. She's dead. What? When Song Qing-shu heard that Zhou Zhiruo was dead, he sat on the chair with a stupefied expression. He didn't hear a single word that Chang Ling-su said. Zhou Zhiruo died just like that? She died just like that. Logically speaking, I should hate her. Even if everything was a misunderstanding and I don't hate her anymore, I shouldn't be so sad. Song Qing-shu clutched his heart, cold sweat dripping down his face. Prince Song, don't listen to Ling-su's nonsense. Your wife is not dead. The poison hand king of medicine couldn't stand it anymore. He used his inner force and said in a low voice. Song Qing-shu's body trembled. His eyes regained their vigor. He looked at the poison hand king of medicine and signaled him to continue. That day, Lady Song came in a hurry and wanted to capture Ling-su in fear. I didn't know what was going on, so I had to help and accidentally hurt your wife. Please forgive me, young master. The poison hand king of medicine said. What happened after that? Song Qing-shu asked hurriedly. The poison hand king of medicine understood his feelings and said quickly, Your wife's kung fu is excellent. Although she was poisoned by me, she could still hold on. At that time, another young master appeared and saved her. I saw that his kung fu should be the heaven and earth great shift of the Ming dynasty. In today's world, only the cult leader of the Ming dynasty, Zhang Wuji, has such kung fu at such a young age. I always leave some leeway when I use poison. Zhang Jiaozhu is a true disciple of the butterfly bone fairy doctor, Hu Qingyo. It shouldn't be difficult for him to detoxify your wife's poison. Zhang Wuji? Song Qing-shu hated this name so much that his teeth itched. When he heard that Zhou Zhuo was saved by him, not only did he not relax, but he became even more worried. He asked hurriedly, Great Master, do you remember when Zhang Wuji saved her? The poison hand king of medicine raised his head and thought for a moment, then answered, It should be early September. There was news in Jianghu that the sword saint of Mount Hua, Feng Qingyang, and the cult leader of the devil cult, Dongfeng Bubi, had a duel, so I still remember. After the duel on the night of the full moon, then it seems that after she was once again by me in the imperial palace, she came to find trouble with Hu Fei and the others. Then she was poisoned and saved by Zhang Wuji. No wonder Zhang Wuji said that he had seen her at Blackwood Cliff. It seems that she was at the King of Medicine this time. From his tone at that time, it seems that nothing happened between the two of them. Fortunately, Song Qing-shu's mind worked quickly, and he finally deduced the whole process. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief. By the way, Great Master, what poison did you use? Do I need to take off my clothes when I detoxify it? Song Qing-shu suddenly thought of a very serious problem. In wuxia novels, after the female protagonist was poisoned, the male protagonist would always take off his clothes to help her heal. In the original work, Zhang Chuishan had picked up In Susu in this way. Zhang Wuji was not inferior to him. When he was saving Zhao Min, he also took off her outer clothes. The poison hand king of medicine was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. He chuckled and said, Prince Song is worrying too much. There is basically no poison in this world that needs to be treated by taking off one's clothes. Taking off one's clothes is usually only to treat some external wounds, such as the wound of being bitten by a poisonous snake. You only need to roll up your trousers or your sleeves. As expected, the Zhang father and son are not good people. They rely on this trick to deceive the feelings of an ignorant girl. Song Qing-shu secretly cursed. Big Brother Song, is the relationship between you and your husband very good? Hu Fei asked. Why do you ask that? Song Qing-shu did not understand. I saw that you were immediately stunned when you heard that she was dead. I think you should like her very much. But as your wife, she wants to kill you. It is really hard for me to understand. Hu Fei spoke out the doubt in her heart. This is a long story. That is. Song Qing-shu was stunned. He suddenly did not know what to say. He waved his hand impatiently. Forget it. You won't understand the adult world even if I tell you. You are a child. Go play in the mud by yourself. Hu Fei was furious. Just as she was about to prove that she was no longer a child, Cheng Su pulled her sleeve and whispered, Brother Hu Fei, let's go play. Don't disturb Uncle Song. Look at him. He must be troubled by love. Since he loves his wife so much, don't provoke my mother in the future. Holding Cheng Su's soft hand, Hu Fei could always calm down. However, she still glared at Song Qing-shu fiercely when they went out. After coming out of the King of Medicine Manor, Song Qing-shu was a little absent-minded for a long time. Later, he unknowingly bumped into a tree and woke up. You're Zhang Wuji, right? The leader of the Ming dynasty, right? I will immediately destroy your so-called Holy Virgin's chastity and make your Ming dynasty the laughingstock of the world. The more Song Qing-shu thought about it, the more excited he became. Hate and love were indeed people's greatest motivations. Previously, he had walked unwillingly to Blackwood Cliff. He had delayed it as long as he could, chatted with Di Yun, and visited his relatives at the King of Medicine Manor. How leisurely and carefree he had been. In the end, when he heard the news at the King of Medicine Manor, he couldn't wait to rush to Blackwood Cliff and destroy the reputation of the Ming dynasty's Holy Virgin. Along the way, he used traceless sand and traveled day and night. After a few days, he finally arrived at Pingding's house, Blackwood Cliff. Previously, he had forced his way through Blackwood Cliff, so Song Qing-shu, who was familiar with the terrain, was able to take advantage of the gaps between the guards and stealthily make his way to Blackwood Cliff. I wonder where the Ming dynasty's Holy Virgin lives. Song Qing-shu hid at the top of the corridor. After the patrolling guards passed by, he silently landed on the ground. He looked around and quietly made his way to the most luxurious place with the most guards. Is the young Mrs. Bath water ready? It's ready. I just want to get the flower petals I gathered this morning. Good. Let's go. Hearing the conversation of the servant girls on the way, Song Qing-shu exclaimed that he was lucky. It really didn't take him any effort at all. He quietly followed behind them and tailed them. Watching the servant girls walk into a brightly lit courtyard, Song Qing-shu observed his surroundings. He reckoned that this was the place where the women lived. Since she was in the women's residence, there were no male guards nearby. She touched a window and wet her finger with her mouth. With a gentle poke, she made a small hole in the paper window. She was proud of herself. Modern society is better. At least the windows are glass. If a thief wanted to make a hole, he would have to prepare a glass knife and a suction cup. It's not as easy as it is now. Once again confirming that there was no one else within a 10-zhang radius, Song Qing-shu moved his eyes closer. Probably because of the hot water in the bathtub, the room was shrouded in smoke, making it hard to see clearly. He saw a graceful woman with her back facing the window. She had a head of long, smooth black hair that fell to her waist. Her willowy waist made her seem especially tall and slender. Long, straight black hair. Just looking at her back is already so attractive. What will happen if I look at her front? Song Qing-shu sighed. Miss, you and I have no enmity. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being this annoying Ming dynasty's Holy Virgin. Chapter 196. Take it off. Take it off. It's good that you're done, so I won't feel guilty when I do it later. Song Qing-shu was actually very conflicted. Although peeping at a girl bathing was very erotic, it was still too despicable. He felt his face was burning after a few glances. But thinking of his revenge plan, Song Qing-shu steeled his heart and secretly warned himself, don't be a hero, don't be a coward. Since I've decided to be a whore, I don't need to build a chastity. I need to think about how to smoothly complete the mission. In just a short while, the woman in the room had taken off her underwear and placed it on the side of the screen. She shook her head slightly, her waist-length hair fluttering even though there was no wind. Her hands went to the back of her neck and tied her hair up, probably to prevent it from getting wet when she entered the bath. Walking on the fragrant stairs in stockings, carrying a pair of golden shoes. Looking at the woman's jade-like feet, stepping on a small ladder step by step into the bathtub, Song Qingshu couldn't help but think of Li Yu's description of Queen Zhou. Staring at the back of her snow-white neck, slender straight legs, Song Qingshu only felt a stream of hot water dripping from the tip of his nose. He reached out his hand to wipe it. All he could see was bright red, immediately cursing his bad luck. Are you kidding me? All those slim necks, slim shoulders, slim waists are my favorite. But to have a nosebleed just by looking at her back, that's really too useless. Even if you're a virgin for more than 20 years, you shouldn't be this dirty. Could it be that practicing the joy Zen has caused you to have too much blood? Hearing the sound of flowing water, Song Qingshu looked in and saw that the woman was already lying in the bathtub, one of her jade-like arms sticking out of the water. The other hand scooped up a handful of water and poured it on her body bit by bit. Song Qingshu's eyesight had improved by more than 10 times since he first mastered the divine skill. Even through the fog, he could clearly see the unique luster of the woman's skin under the candlelight. It was a color that was not used to being exposed to the air. It was the moisture that was hidden throughout the spring, and it was also the luster of a flower bud before it withered in summer. Song Qingshu felt his throat go dry. He knew that he couldn't continue looking. He had to see the woman's face. Otherwise, if he continued to fantasize about her in his mind, he would end up like Duan Yu, picturing a perfect woman who didn't actually exist in his mind, forming a mental barrier in his heart. Circulating qi in his hands, he used a gentle force to break the latch inside and gently open the window. Like a cat, Song Qingshu landed on the ground soundlessly and moved towards the bathtub step by step. The sound of water splashing could be heard. Song Qingshu didn't want to startle the other party, so he was very careful along the way. The sudden sound startled him. Looking up, he saw that the woman had lifted a straight leg out of the water and placed it on the edge of the bathtub, pouring water on it with both hands as if she was playing a prank. Song Qingshu's breathing became heavy, and he cursed inwardly. The woman's ears twitched, and, as expected, she sensed someone behind her. But to Song Qingshu's surprise, she didn't turn around or scream. Instead, she said softly, "Is that Xiaobai? Can you come over and help me massage my shoulders? I don't know why, but I've been feeling sore in my shoulders lately." Yes. This voice sounds familiar? A trace of doubt flashed across Song Qingshu's mind, but in order not to startle her, he could only give a vague answer. He used his qin gong to move his feet, and his footsteps were as light as a young girl's. Even when he arrived behind the woman, she didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. "Xiaobai, hurry up." The woman stretched lazily. She placed her hands on the edge of the bathtub, revealing her smooth and round shoulders. She signaled for the servant girl to help her massage them. "You asked for it, so you can't blame me. Let's do the foreplay." Song Qingshu reached out his trembling hand and placed it on the young girl's shoulder. He felt that it was incomparably smooth, and his heart skipped a beat. He gently began to massage it. After a long time, the young girl grunted comfortably. "Xiaobai, your technique has improved a lot today." She then tilted her head back slightly. Song Qingshu was immersed in feeling the elasticity of a young girl's skin. He didn't expect her to suddenly raise her head, and it was too late for him to dodge. Their eyes met, and the two of them cried out in unison, "How could it be you?" The young girl's modesty allowed her to react faster. She raised her wrist and directly stabbed at Song Qingshu's eyes. Song Qingshu came back to his senses and let go of the young girl's shoulder. His fingers gently flicked at the joints of her elbow. The young girl felt her entire arm go numb, and she lost all feeling. Anxious, she got up and raised her leg to kick at his neck, but Song Qingshu directly grabbed her ankle. She tried to break free with her foot, but it was like a clay ox in the sea, and she couldn't move an inch. "I say, young Miss Run, long time no see. How can I accept such a big gift as soon as I meet? Song Qingshu's eyes wandered up and down her body. It turned out that this young girl wasn't the holy maiden of the Ming dynasty, but the holy maiden of the Sun Moon sect, Ren Yingying. Ren Yingying had just been bathing, so of course she was naked now. Her hands and feet were restrained by him, and her whole body was exposed in an embarrassing position in front of Song Qingshu. Although she had always been smart and calm, her mind was blank at this moment. Young Miss Ren, I'm curious. Why didn't you scream? Song Qingshu felt very strange while feasting his eyes. Hearing this, Ren Yingying's pretty face immediately turned red, and she couldn't speak of her bitterness. Now that Brother Chong was also on Blackwood Cliff, if she screamed, her father, Uncle Xiong, and the subordinates of the Sun Moon sect would rush over anxiously. If they saw her posture now, even if Brother Chong didn't mind, she wouldn't have the face to live. Seems like it's really fate. In the last battle, I didn't succeed in taking off all your clothes, but today you took off your clothes for me to see. How obedient. Song Qingshu saw that her nose was slightly raised, her long eyelashes were trembling, and her delicate face was reflected on her face, making her look even more beautiful. His heart was moved, and he couldn't help but lean over and kiss her cheek. Shameless. Ren Yingying's breathing quickened, and her chest rose and fell violently. Song Qingshu was dumbfounded. Just as he was about to tease her a little more, Song Qingshu's expression suddenly changed. He abruptly turned his head to look outside. At this time, an old voice came from outside. Yingying, father has a few words to say to you. Song Qingshu turned back to look at her, afraid that she would call for help. Unexpectedly, Ren Yingying took a deep breath and calmly replied, Daughter is bathing. I'm afraid it's not convenient for me to see father. My good daughter has grown up. Ren Wuxing's gratified laughter came from outside the door. Father doesn't want to make things difficult for you, but you know the current situation of Blackwood Cliff. There are some things that are not convenient to say on a normal day, and if someone sees you standing outside now, it's also not appropriate. If father remembers correctly, there are several screens in this room. Father can come in and talk to you through the screens. What do you think? This is really a ghost father, forcing his way in when his daughter is bathing. Song Qingshu cursed in his heart. Okay, father, please wait a moment. Hearing Ren Yingying's words, Song Qingshu's expression changed, and he bent his elbow, instantly wrapping it around her neck. I won't let others know about our current appearance. Ren Yingying suddenly felt it was difficult to breathe, and quickly said, Then why did you let your father in? Firstly, he didn't want to alert the enemy, and secondly, his true energy was still young, so he was slightly afraid of the other's star-sucking ability. Therefore, Song Qingshu didn't want to directly clash with Ren Wuxing, but he still slightly loosened his grip. Just hide. Ren Yingying bit her lips, and no expression could be seen on her face. There's nothing here. There's nothing at all. Where can I hide? Song Qingshu looked around. Although there was a large screen between this place and the living room, the screen was quite transparent, so Ren Yingying wouldn't be exposed while lying in the bathtub. No matter where he hid, his shadow would be imprinted on the screen, and Ren Wuxing would know when he came to take a look. Ren Yingying's gaze turned, and she stared at the water in the bathtub, and even the tips of her ears became hot. Song Qingshu was stunned. This works? Yingying, are you done? Father is coming in. Ren Wuxing was a little anxious waiting outside the door. He didn't know how many spies the Ming dynasty had in Blackwood Cliff, so he purposely took his daughter while she was bathing, and the spies would come when their vigilance was low. However, if he stayed outside for too long and was seen by the Ming dynasty spies, it would raise suspicion. Hearing the sound of Ren Wuxing opening the door, Ren Yingying said anxiously, Quickly carry me in. Her thoughts were quite simple. It was already unfortunate that Song Qingshu saw her naked, but if her father came in and saw her, just thinking about it made her shudder. Song Qingshu didn't hesitate anymore and carried Ren Yingying directly into the water. What's that sound? Ren Wuxing had just entered when he heard the sound of a heavy object entering the water. It's nothing, father. Ren Yingying's voice was a little frightened. This made Ren Wuxing even more suspicious, and he was worried that the Ming dynasty had kidnapped his precious daughter. So he asked anxiously, "Ying, are you all right? I feel that something's wrong with you." "I'm fine." Lying in the bathtub and facing Song Qing-shu, who was smiling at her, Ren Ying's voice was naturally a little unnatural. Chapter 195. Smooth hot spring water washing. Blackwood Cliff isn't very peaceful now, and there might be some rascals taking the opportunity to cause trouble. Father needs to take a look at you to be at ease. Ren Wuxing was originally very suspicious, and the moment he entered the room, he felt that something was wrong, so he walked step by step towards the back of the screen. Ren Ying turned pale with fright and hurriedly gestured for Song Qing-shu to go under the water. Under the water? Song Qing-shu used his finger to point at the surface of the water, and his expression was extremely strange. He cursed in his heart. "Miss, do you know that you're naked right now?" Hearing that Ren Wuxing's footsteps had already reached the back of the screen, Song Qing-shu didn't have time to think about anything else. He took a deep breath and sank his whole body into the water. "Father, why did you just barge in like this?" Ren Ying crossed her arms, and only her head was above the water. Her face was red, and she looked at Ren Wuxing, who walked in with a reproachful expression. Ren Wuxing's sharp eyes scanned the surroundings, but he didn't find any suspicious signs, so he hurriedly retreated. "Father is overthinking. Father thought that you were kidnapped by someone." "Father, you guessed correctly." A trace of bitterness flowed through Ren Ying's heart, but she still said, "Father has been worrying too much recently." After saying that, she used the tip of her foot to poke Song Qing-shu in front of her, indicating for him to come up. Who knew that after poking him a few times, Song Qing-shu would continue to stay in the water, as if he had no intention of coming up. Around half an hour later. Chapter 197. How could a smart girl like her not know what Song Qing-shu was planning? She was ashamed and angry at the same time, but there was nothing she could do. She could only close her thighs tightly, cover her chest with one hand, and cover her private part with the other. "I can't help but worry. When I was saved by Zhang Wuji in the Plum Manor, although I knew he was plotting against the Sun Moon sect, that dog from the east had been stealing the treasure for more than 10 years and had already secured the position of the sect leader. I was alone, so in order to regain the position of the sect leader, I could only pretend to be courteous with him. During the battle in Chengda Hall, Ling Huchong and Xiang Wentian were both seriously injured, and I was also blinded in one eye. Zhang Wuji's martial arts seemed to be even more terrifying than that dog from the east. Only then did I realize that it's easier to invite a god and then to send him away." Ren Wuxing sat outside the screen and sighed deeply. Father's martial arts are unparalleled. When Uncle Xiang and Chong, brother, recover, we naturally won't have to be afraid of that Zhang Wuji. Speaking of Ling Huchong, Ren Ying couldn't help but think that she was lying naked in a bathtub with another man. She felt a sharp pain in her chest. "It's easier said than done. Daddy didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. Your Uncle Xiang's chest acupoint was pierced by that Dongfang bastard. Most of his power has already dissipated. As for that brat Ling Huchong, he was originally a sickly person. If it weren't for Daddy's astral protection, I'm afraid he would have already died after taking that Dongfang bastard's palm strike. Now, the internal injuries on his body won't recover without 3 to 5 years." Ren Wuxing's tone was full of melancholy. To regain the position of the sect leader, it was worth it to pay this little loss. Unfortunately, there was a sect leader of the Ming dynasty, so he was restricted by both sides. "Uncle Xiang," Ren Ying exclaimed. Since she was young, Xiang Wentian had always been very good to her. In her heart, he was like her own father. After the battle that day, we were all seriously injured, but Zhang Wuji took the opportunity to suggest that the Sun Moon sect should return to the Ming dynasty. Our Sun Moon sect separated from the Ming dynasty and has been established for more than 200 years. We have long had nothing to do with the Ming dynasty. He is obviously taking the opportunity to threaten us by bringing this up." Ren Wuxing slammed his palm on the chair, and it was obvious that he was extremely furious. His palm was like a blade, and the armrest of the chair was instantly sliced in half. "Didn't you manage to deal with it that time?" Ren Yingying asked gently. Looking at the black figure in the water, her brows furrowed. She stretched out her arm and placed it under Song Qingshu's armpit. She exerted a little force, intending to lift him out of the water. To her surprise, not only did the other party not move, but her calf was also held in the other party's hand. Ren Yingying could not help but exclaim when she felt a big hand pinching her leg mischievously. "What's wrong, Yingying?" Ren Wuxing blanked for a moment and turned around to ask. "It's nothing, father." Ren Yingying clenched her teeth and tried to pull her leg back. She tried a few times, but to no avail. She was so angry that tears welled up in her eyes. This is the brilliance of Zhang Wuji. He knows that the Sun-Moon sect has been established for more than 200 years, and from the elders and hall masters to the disciples of the various branches, everyone has a strong sense of identity with our sect. He is worried that if he presses too hard, even if he kills us, he will not be able to control the sect. There are hundreds of thousands of members of the Sun-Moon sect. Therefore, he changed his strategy and began to coax the middle and lower-level disciples. Once he controls this group of power, it will no longer matter whether I, as the sect master, agree to merge the sect or not. Ren Wuxing cried out that he had miscalculated. After a long time, he finally understood everything. When Zhang Wuji proposed to merge the sect, he actually did not expect Ren Wuxing to agree to it. He only used it as a condition to entice Ren Wuxing to agree to a series of messy conditions. At that time, when Ren Wuxing saw that Zhang Wuji had finally given up on the idea of merging the sect, he heaved a huge sigh of relief and relaxed his vigilance. Now that he thought about it, those seemingly insignificant conditions were now like knives cutting into his flesh. Ren Yingying was angry and embarrassed when she realized that her calf was being wantonly played with by Song Qingshu. Ever since she became the holy nun of the Sun-Moon sect, no man had ever dared to look her in the eye, let alone brazenly molest her. The numb feeling on her leg made her momentarily dazed. She did not hear a single word that Ren Wuxing said. Among the 10 great elders of the Blackwood Cliff, some are the henchmen of that dog Dongfang, and some are in cahoots with Zhang Wuji. There are very few who are truly loyal to Father. Also, this time, the holy nun sent by the Brightness Peak. Our Sun-Moon sect has our own holy nun. Why would we need the holy nun of the Ming dynasty to give us orders? However, Father's strength is at its lowest now, so I can't shed all pretense of cordiality with Zhang Wuji. Although I know that welcoming the holy nun of the Ming dynasty will give the people below the sect the wrong impression that the Sun-Moon sect is a subordinate organization of the Ming dynasty, I can't care so much. Ren Wuxing's boldness was astonishing, so he was naturally unwilling to be controlled by others. However, he was an ambitious and ruthless person of his generation, so he also understood the principle of forbearance. It was only at this moment that he revealed a trace of helplessness and resentment in front of his daughter. Although Song Qingshu was a little mischievous underwater, he had been seriously listening to Ren Wuxing. When he heard him mention the Ming dynasty holy nun, he immediately pricked up his ears. Unfortunately, he did not obtain any useful information. Feeling that Song Qingshu had stopped moving, the numbness gradually disappeared, and Ren Yingying could finally breathe a sigh of relief. She had always been resourceful, so when she heard her father's words, a trace of worry formed between her brows. She asked, "Father, do you have any countermeasures?" Ren Wuxing glanced at her through the screen and said in a deep voice, "Father plans to betroth you to Zhang Wuji." What? Not only was Ren Yingying shocked, but Song Qingshu was also shocked and angry. He pinched the skin on Ren Yingying's thigh to express the anger in his heart. Ren Yingying's skin was already dyed red. When she heard Ren Wuxing's words, she couldn't care less about being taken advantage of by Song Qingshu. She hurriedly asked why. "Yingying, if you marry Zhang Wuji, then he and I will be a family. The Sun-Moon sect and the Ming dynasty will naturally no longer be separated, and Father won't have to worry about being annexed by the Ming dynasty. Isn't this the best of both worlds?" Ren Wuxing said, "Father, Aren't you going to tell your daughter the truth? Ren Ying suddenly pulled her leg back. She wanted to catch Song Qingshu off guard and see if she could escape from his cage. Who knew that she would still be tightly held in his arms? She felt very depressed and couldn't help but let out a faint sigh. Chapter 196. The Secret Beneath the Water. Ying has been smart since you were young. I knew I couldn't hide it from you. Ren Wuxing smiled. That's right. Marrying you to Zhang Wuji is only to numb his mind and make him think that the Sun-Moon sect is at his fingertips. Ying, you can also secretly send messages to me so that I can know his movements in time. Father, you don't have to say any more. I will not marry him even if I die. If I have to marry, I will only marry Brother Chong. Ren Ying said resolutely. When she thought about the other man hiding in the bathtub, she was so angry that she kicked him with her other leg. As expected, she was once again held hostage by Song Qingshu. What's so good about Linghu Chong? He's always been a sickly invalid. If it wasn't for Father's absorbing star that dispelled the strange true qi in his body, he would have turned into a pile of bones long ago. His martial arts are SOSO. His solitary 9 swords is SOSO. But compared to Zhang Wuji, the difference is like the clouds and mud. Ren Wuxing stood up angrily and paced back and forth. If his martial arts were only SOSO, it would have been fine. After all, he could be considered one of us. Unfortunately, he's rigidly adhered to the line between good and evil. All he thinks about is the Mount Hua sect. Father invited him several times and gave him the position of left emissary of light. When Father passes away, he will be the next sect leader. What's so bad about that? Who knew that Brat wouldn't know what's good for him and rejected Father's good intentions several times? If it wasn't for you, Ying, Father would have killed him long ago. Now, he was half crippled by Dongfang Bubi. Just looking at him annoys me. Father, don't say any more. In any case, I won't marry anyone but Linghu Chong. Both of her legs were grabbed by Song Qingshu. Her pure skin was touched by his hateful hands over and over again. When she heard that her father wanted to separate her and Linghu Chong, Ren Ying couldn't help but feel sad. She couldn't hold it in anymore and started sobbing. His wife died young. Ren Wuxing had always doted on his daughter. When he heard her crying so sadly, he panicked. Okay. Father was wrong. I won't force you to marry Zhang Wuji anymore. His tone was filled with endless regret. After crying out the grievances in her heart, Ren Ying felt much better. Her rationality also slowly came back. She noticed the unwillingness in Ren Wuxing's voice. In order to completely dispel this idea of his, she didn't care about exposing herself. She wiped her tears and said, Everyone in the world knows about the love affair between the Ming Dynasty sect leader and the Mongolian princess Zhao Min and the Amei sect leader Zhou Zhihua. Father, if you send me there, how am I supposed to live? Do you want me to be a concubine? When Ren Wuxing heard that her tone had softened, he said happily, You don't know about this. Zhou Zhihua has long been married. She's married to someone else, so naturally, she's out of the competition. As for Zhao Min, she was originally the final winner of this love affair. However, for some reason, she suddenly returned to the Ryong Palace of Mongolia and led an army to cause trouble for the Ming Dynasty. This caused Zhang Wuji to be badly battered. Fortunately, he only sent a saintess to Blackwood Cliff. Otherwise, if she were to personally oversee this place, he wouldn't be able to be the sect leader anymore. Now that there are no other women by his side, if Father expressed his intention to marry him now, in order to fight for the secret under the water, he would definitely agree. With the power of the Sun-Moon sect, they will definitely agree to it. When that time comes, you will surpass them and become the Ming cult leader's wife. Zhao Min and Zhang Wuji had a falling out? When Song Qingshu heard this, he subconsciously tightened his grip and immediately heard Ren Ying's cry of pain. He didn't care much about it, and instead pondered, They have such a good relationship. How could they have a falling out? Could it be that Zhao Min found out about the matter between me and Zhou Zhihua? That shouldn't be the case. Zhao Min has always been very clear about the disputes between the two of them. Moreover, the matter at the lion-slaying conference proved that I misunderstood. There's no reason for Zhao Min to have a falling out with Zhang Wuji. Could it be that something happened between me and Zhou Zhuo recently, and Zhao Min bumped into it, causing Zhao Min to have a falling out with him? Song Qing-shu thought of a certain possibility, and his expression instantly became very unsightly. Chapter 198. Ren Yingying saw that the previous reason didn't work, so she could only resort to her last resort. She said quietly, "Father, it said that a married daughter is like spilled water. Since I'm married to Zhang Wuji, I'm his woman. No matter what I do, I'll definitely think for my husband. So why would I help you?" As expected, Ren Wuxing didn't think of this. He was instantly shocked and angry. "Yingying, you smart," Song Qingshu praised. Of course, he couldn't say anything right now, so he could only use his finger to stroke the sole of Ren Yingying's foot to express his appreciation. Ren Yingying held back her laughter and continued, "If father forced me to marry Zhang Wuji, I'll definitely not help father because of my resentment." Ren Wuxing was so angry that he laughed. "You're actually going against father for a sickly drunkard. You're really pissing me off." Ren Yingying remained silent, but her eyes were filled with determination. Seeing that the father and daughter had fallen into silence, Song Qingshu was bored and could only focus his attention on the small and exquisite jade feet in his hands. Each toe was round and full. Song Qingshu sighed in his heart. What an exquisite woman. Just this pair of legs alone was worth playing with for an entire night. Ah! Ren Yingying suddenly felt a warm and moist thing on the skin of her leg. She was shocked and cried out in a low voice, "Ling Huchong, you stinking brat, get out here." Ren Wuxing had been suspicious the whole time. Although he didn't see anything suspicious after looking around, he sat down and calmed down. He quickly thought of that wide bathtub. However, since his daughter was inside, it wasn't convenient for him to check. Therefore, he focused all his attention on the bathtub. Ren Yingying's previous strange actions made Ren Wuxing even more suspicious. This time, when Ren Yingying cried out in surprise, he finally sensed another person's heartbeat. He thought that his daughter couldn't stand Ling Huchong's tricks and had already given herself to him. Thinking about how shameless and despicable Ling Huchong was to run into Yingying's bathtub before they were even married, and in addition to the fact that he and Yingying had previously come to an impasse regarding the matter of their marriage, Ren Wuxing's anger rose rapidly. In the water, Song Qingshu felt a strong suction force and knew that it was Ren Wuxing's suction force. He didn't resist and allowed Ren Wuxing to suck him in. When they were 3 feet apart, Song Qingshu sprayed the water in his mouth onto Ren Wuxing's face. Ren Wuxing couldn't defend in time and felt his vision go black. Then, the acupoint on his chest was sealed. Taking advantage of Ren Wuxing's carelessness, Song Qingshu finally managed to subdue him. Just as he was about to use his strength to take Ren Wuxing's life, he heard a cry, "No!" When he turned around and saw Ren Yingying's pleading eyes, Song Qingshu immediately came back to his senses. If he killed Ren Wuxing now, it would only benefit Zhang Wuji and Dongfang Muxue. It wouldn't benefit me at all. While Song Qingshu was deep in thought, Ren Wuxing finally reacted. When he saw the person in front of him, he was both shocked and angry. "It's actually you. Isn't it me?" Song Qingshu's finger was still on Ren Wuxing's acupoint, ready to do so at any moment. He changed his mind. "That day you guys jumped off the cliff and didn't die," Ren Wuxing said with a puzzled expression. "Seeing that you're still alive and kicking, I'm sure Dongfang Booby isn't dead either. Why don't you guess?" Song Qingshu shrugged. "What did you do to my daughter?" Ren Wuxing snorted coldly and said angrily, "I think the situation is already quite clear. I don't need to say anything else." Song Qingshu purposely provoked him. "Yingying, I didn't think that you would actually pledge to marry him. What about Ling Huchong?" Ren Wuxing's tone was full of pity and pain. "Father, don't listen to his nonsense. He suddenly barged in just now, and I was only taken advantage of by him a little tongue. I didn't do anything with him." Ren Yingying had already taken the opportunity to wrap herself up. She glared at Song Qingshu with a mixture of shame and anger. Now that his daughter was taken advantage of by Song Qingshu, Ren Wuxing slowly calmed down. After the battle in Chengde Hall, he found out about Song Qingshu's identity. Naturally, he knew that Song Qingshu defeated a void-pierce stage expert with a single sword strike and forced Walinchan to retreat on the Jade Emperor Peak. Ren Wuxing had seen the martial arts of these two people. Although they weren't as good as him, they weren't too far apart. Song Qingshu could easily defeat them. In addition to the battle between him and Zhang Wuji on the Blackwood Cliff, Ren Wuxing deduced that Song Qingshu's martial arts were probably only slightly weaker than Dongfang Bubi and Zhang Wuji. Ren Wuxing reacted quickly and immediately said, Song Xiaoxia is so young, but he already has such high attainments in martial arts. I admire him very much. Now you and Yingying. Ren Wuxing paused. This matter concerns a girl's reputation. You have to take responsibility, right? As long as you're willing to join my cult, I can betroth Yingying to you. I don't need him to take responsibility for my daughter, Ren Yingying exclaimed. Cult Master Run, are you trying to recruit me? Song Qingshu looked at him playfully with a smile on his face. Do you know that I'm on the same side as Dongfang Bubi? I understand that there are no eternal enemies in the world. Whatever Dongfang Bubi can give you, I can also give you. Whatever Dongfang Bubi can't give you, I can still give it to you. After saying that, Ren Wuxing glanced at Ren Yingying. Song Qingshu also looked back. Although Ren Yingying's hair was messy and her clothes were untidy, she was still as beautiful as ever. Her hands were tightly grabbing the hem of her clothes to cover her bare legs. She lowered her head and her cheeks were red. She looked very delicate and weak. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed, as if she was deeply worried. Ren Wuxing's heart suddenly moved. I am indebted to Cult Master Ren's kindness, but my relationship with Dongfang is complicated. I can only let you down. Before he finished speaking, he felt a strange suction force coming from the acupuncture point on his finger. His inner energy surged out and entered Ren Wuxing's body. Song Qingshu was shocked. He hurriedly circulated his inner energy to struggle free. His expression was extremely ugly. Absorbing Star. It turned out that Ren Wuxing had purposely changed the topic to lower Song Qingshu's guard. He then took the opportunity to use his Absorbing Star to ambush him. If it wasn't for Ren Wuxing's sleeping in the same bed, Song Qingshu's acupuncture point had just been opened and his whole body was still feeling numb. Song Qingshu probably wouldn't be able to struggle free so easily. His inner energy would have gone down the drain. Since you don't know what's good for you and you've seen Yingying's body, then die. Ren Wuxing adjusted his inner energy. He clapped his palms together and there was a faint sound of wind and thunder. He pounced towards Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu's aura was surging. He knew that he wasn't Ren Wuxing's opponent. He decisively broke through the window and escaped. Ren Wuxing was furious. He chased after him like a shadow. Although Song Qingshu's Qigong was higher than Ren Wuxing's, he wasn't as familiar with the Blackwood Cliff's architecture. Therefore, he couldn't shake Ren Wuxing off. After several twists and turns, Song Qingshu passed by a house. He knew that he couldn't continue to run aimlessly like this. He pushed open the door and jumped in. Before he could see the situation in the house, a shining sword was placed on his neck. Song Qingshu lamented in his heart. I can't be this unlucky, right? Why are you here? Just as Song Qingshu was thinking of a way to escape, he suddenly heard a gentle and clear voice. He looked up in surprise and saw a pair of bright eyes in front of him. Song Qingshu was also stunned. It's you? The beautiful woman in front of him was the fairy daughter who came to Jinling City on the moon that day, Princess Chongping, Zhu Yingying. Are people from the Sun Moon sect chasing after you? Zhu Yingying glanced at Song Qingshu when she heard the voice coming from not far away. Yes. Song Qingshu nodded. Come with me. Zhu Yingying withdrew her sword and grabbed his wrist. She walked toward the screen at the side. Greetings, Your Highness Saintess. There were assassins on the Blackwood Cliff tonight. I wonder if Your Highness is all right. Ren Wuxing's voice came from outside the house. Your Highness Saintess? Song Qingshu looked at Zhu Yingying in surprise. The contours of her profile were exceptionally soft and beautiful, as if they were drawn by a single stroke of a pen. There was not a single flaw. He actually came in person. Zhu Yingying frowned. She knew that the other party would not be so easy to get rid of. She immediately changed her mind and pulled Song Qing-shu directly to the bed. Seeing him looking at her in confusion, Zhu Yingying said in a low voice and hid under the quilt. Song Qing-shu was also a quick-witted person. When he heard her words, he immediately reacted. However, he still couldn't help but have a beautiful thought. Seeing that Song Qing-shu hid under the bed, Zhu Yingying also got under the quilt. Only her head was exposed. She said to the door, "Thank you for your concern, Leader Ren. I'm fine. I didn't notice anything unusual. However, someone saw the assassins escaping to this area. To prevent your Highness Saintess from being disturbed, I'd better search first before I can be at ease." Then, without waiting for Zhu Yingying to reply, he directly pushed the door open and entered. He signaled his subordinates to start searching around while his eyes swept across the room. "How dare you?" Ajio's face turned cold. He looked at Ren Wuxing and said, "I've already fallen asleep. Leader Ren, what are you trying to do by barging in with your men?" Chapter 197. Sleeping in the same bed, part of the quilt. They had always known that the Saintess was of noble status. Subconsciously, they were intimidated by her imposing manner. They stopped in their tracks and looked at Ren Wuxing with inquiring eyes. Ren Wuxing let out a hearty laugh. "Please forgive me, Saintess. I'm just worried that something might happen to Saintess at Blackwood Cliff, which would definitely affect the relationship between the Ming cult and the Sun Moon cult. Your Highness Saintess is a righteous person, so I'm sure you can understand my difficulties." Seeing that he was using the Ming dynasty to pressure her, Zhu Yingying snorted coldly and said, "Now that you've seen it, you can leave if you don't see any traces of the assassins." Lying under the quilt, Song Qing-shu smelled a sweet fragrance that drilled straight into his nose. Ajio was sleeping next to him. Their clothes were pressed against each other, and their bodies were pressed against each other. It was a warm and soft sensation. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. Could it be, as Patriarch Sunflower said, that I'm really entangled with peach blossoms? But for a man, this doesn't seem to be a bad thing. Chapter 199. Saintess, although we've searched the other places, there's still one place that we haven't searched yet, Ren Wuxing said as he stared at the bed. Noticing his gaze, Zhu Yinshi was furious. "I've already taken off my clothes and slept. There's nothing under the blanket. Does Leader Ren want to take a look?" As soon as she said this, the sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard. Looking at the expectant eyes of his subordinates, Ren Wuxing felt a little awkward and quickly said, "If that's the case, I won't disturb your rest anymore." He was actually worried that the Saintess would be kidnapped by Song Qing-shu like Ren Yingying and have no choice but to deal with him. However, from her tone, it was obvious that she was trying to protect him. Although he knew that Song Qing-shu was hiding under the blanket, he didn't dare to lift the blanket. He knew the rules of the Ming Dynasty's Saintess, and he didn't want to offend the tens of thousands of Ming Dynasty followers for no reason. Since the Saintess was safe and sound, there was no need for him to chase after her. After all, there was still a long way to go, and capturing Song Qing-shu could be planned at length. Moreover, he still had the intention of recruiting Song Qing-shu. After all of his subordinates had left, Ren Wuxing stood at the door. He turned around and said in a tone of admiration and envy, "So many women are willing to disregard their reputation to protect you. You really have good methods." "Ha ha!" He laughed and left. "He's gone, you can come out." Zhu Yinshi lifted the blanket and jumped off the bed. Although Song Qing-shu was infatuated with the fragrance of the blanket, he didn't have the thick skin to stay there. He also jumped off the bed and said, "Thank you for saving me. It's a pity that I wet your embroidered blanket and your clothes." "I'm very sorry." Looking at the wet blanket, Song Qing-shu had a trace of regret on his face. She noticed that her dress was wet because it was so close to Chu Yunqing's body, and her skin could be vaguely seen. Zhu Xiaoying's face turned slightly red. She picked up a coat from the side and put it on to cover her beautiful body. She said awkwardly, "I'm just repaying you for saving me in Jinling City last time. You don't have to take it to heart." "How can that be compared? If I hadn't appeared that day, you would have already succeeded," Song Qing-shu said awkwardly. Everything has its own destiny. That can only prove that the fate of the Tartars is not over yet. Zhu Mengshi sighed slightly, his voice full of helplessness and melancholy. Oh yes, how did you become the Holy Virgin of the Ming Dynasty? Song Qing-shu asked after a moment of silence. Where did you go? Why are you covered in water? Change your clothes first. It's not good for your body to be wet. Zhu Mengshi glanced at his clothes and said softly. Song Qing-shu laughed dryly. He was too embarrassed to say that he went into ruin Ying Ying's bathtub. Fortunately, she didn't really want to know the answer. I didn't bring a change of clothes with me. I'll go down the mountain and warm them up. Zhu Mengshi frowned and slightly shook her head. I still have something to ask you. How about this? I'll find a set of clothes for you to change into. Then she walked to the closet and started to rummage through the clothes. Song Qing-shu's expression was a little interesting. He quickly waved his hand and said, Thank you for your kindness. But I'm a man. I'm afraid it's not convenient for me to wear your clothes. Thinking about how he would look like in women's clothes, he suddenly shuddered. Zhu Mengshi pursed her lips and smiled. When I travel in Jianghu, I will occasionally dress up as a man. You're worrying too much. After a while, she took out a set of green clothes and handed it to Song Qing-shu. She said, Try to see if you can wear it. I'm worried that it might be a little tight for you. Thank you. Song Qing-shu took it and smelled a sweet fragrance. He was stunned. Why is it fragrant? Zhu Mengshi blushed and turned around. I don't have any brand new clothes here. I've worn this before, I hope you don't mind. I don't mind, of course I don't mind. Song Qing-shu was overjoyed. What kind of joke was this? A man who would choose brand new clothes in this kind of situation must be crazy. Go behind the screen and change first. I'll stand by the window and see if there are any of Run Wuxing's men outside. Zhu Mengshi said and walked to the window. She lightly pushed the window open a little and looked outside. Song Qing-shu quickly changed his clothes. He felt his whole body was dry and soft. There was even a faint fragrance coming from the clothes. He immediately felt refreshed. I'll have to find a chance to return this set of clothes to her in the future. It won't be hard to borrow it again. In my previous life, people said that borrowing books is the beginning of love. I'll take a different approach and borrow clothes to express my love. I think the effect won't be too bad. Ren Wuxing didn't send anyone to stand guard nearby. This is really puzzling. Zhu Mengshi stood with her hands behind her back. She lowered her head and thought hard. Maybe he's afraid of offending you because you're a holy maiden? Song Qing-shu fastened his belt and walked out. You're indeed a little young. Zhu Mengshi stared at him and looked him up and down. Her lips curled into a smile. You do have 70% of my handsomeness when I'm dressed as a man. Miss, you're elegant and refined. You'll definitely anger Luo Chang to death, scare Pan into death, and embarrass Song Yu to death in this set of clothes. I don't dare to compare myself to you. Song Qing-shu praised. Is this how you usually lie to young girls? Zhu Mengshi sat down and looked at him calmly. You've wronged me. Little girls nowadays are as cunning as ghosts. Each of them is smarter than the other. How could they be deceived with just a few words? Song Qing-shu also sat down at the side and said with an embarrassed smile, If only he was as good at coaxing girls as you are. Zhu Mengshi sighed softly. Yuan Qingji was calm and collected. He was indeed not as frivolous as Song Qing-shu. As a holy maiden sent by the Ming Dynasty, I've naturally violated Run Wuxing's interests. That's why he's always seen me as a thorn in his side. Unfortunately, he hasn't fully digested the power of the Sun-Moon sect yet, so he can only maintain a friendly relationship with me on the surface. It's rare for him to have something on me today, but he didn't seize the opportunity to make a fuss. It's really not his style. Zhu Mengshi answered. Could it be that he is not dead yet, to spoil your virtue? Is he planning to rope me in? Song Qing-shu suppressed the doubts in his heart and asked again, By the way, how did you become the holy maiden of the Ming Dynasty? Zhu Mengshi's red lips parted slightly. She spoke in a neither fast nor slow manner, but she clearly explained the whole story. Before the last trip to Jinling, I was invited by Zhang Jiaozhu to be the holy maiden of the Ming Dynasty. You know my identity. I'm just a princess of a subjugated country, but I'm not willing to live in seclusion for the rest of my life. All along, my biggest wish has been to drive out the Tartars and restore the Ming dynasty to comfort my father's soul in heaven. Unfortunately, I've been watching from the sidelines for the past few years. Although the Tiandi Hui, the Red Flower Society, the Mu Palace, and the Zheng family of Taiwan all claim to be fighting against the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty, they don't look like people who can achieve great things. On the contrary, Zhang Jiaozhu of the Ming dynasty is unparalleled in martial arts. He's also a great strategist. I'm afraid that he'll be the one to overthrow the Qing dynasty in the future. Song Qingshu noticed that although she was exposed to the common people, there was an air of elegance and nobility in her gestures. He secretly admired her. Looking at the woman in front of him, whose appearance was as beautiful as a painting, constantly praising Zhang Wuji, he couldn't help but feel a burst of jealousy in his heart. Your Highness, even if Zhang Wuji overthrew the Manchurian dynasty, he'll certainly become the emperor himself. How can it be considered restoring the Ming dynasty's rivers and mountains? Zhu Mingxi seemed to have thought about this question a long time ago. Very quickly, she replied, "This is why I'm sure that the Tiandi Hui and the Mu Palace will fail in the end. They're too attached to the orthodoxy. When it comes to the struggle between the Tang dynasty and the Gui dynasty, one word of disagreement, and they'll even kill each other. The Manchurian dynasty hasn't been destroyed yet, but they're already thinking about who'll be the emperor in the future. They're really a bunch of—" Zhu Mingxi quickly stopped talking, but her meaning was obvious. That's right, Han people have too many smart people. They obviously have 99 brothers, but the enemy is only one. They always think about getting rid of their own people first, and then they'll become the boss. Only then will they go and deal with the enemy. But nobody has ever thought about whether they have the ability to deal with that formidable enemy alone. Song Qingshu sighed. Gongzi's knowledge is indeed profound. Zhu Mengxi's beautiful eyes shone with extraordinary splendor. As the last princess of the great Ming Empire, naturally she's seen the world's top characters. She's roamed the Jianghu for many years, but those so-called heroes and warriors, even people like Qin Jinan, were not really in her eyes. There was only one Zhang Wuji. When talking about the world's general situation, he often hit the nail on the head, making her admire him from the bottom of her heart. She didn't expect that now there's another Song Qingshu. My thinking is different from theirs. My first goal is to overthrow the Manchurian dynasty. As for who will be the emperor, we can talk about it later. Moreover, the Ming dynasty is inextricably linked to my great Ming dynasty. Zhang Jiaozhu also promised that one day, when he unifies the world, he will definitely use the Ming as the name of the country. As Zhu Mengxi spoke, a trace of red appeared on her cheeks. There was another sentence that she didn't say. That day, Zhang Wuji also promised to make her the empress in the future and choose their child to inherit the throne, so that the Zhu family's bloodline could continue to flow. But at that time, she was extremely worried about Yuan Qingji, so she didn't agree. Something's wrong. Something's very wrong. This Zhang Wuji is too different from the original work. Chapter 198 will destroy your chastity before the lion-slaying assembly. I already felt that there was something wrong with him. Now that I look back at his various actions, every move of his has a profound meaning, and they all hit the nail on the head. Furthermore, he seems to be full of ambition, as if he wants to devour the world. He's really a world of difference from the indecisive and indifferent man in the original work. Song Qingshu was suspicious of Do Dasheng, but on second thought, since he could travel through time, a little butterfly effect shouldn't be a big deal. Judging from Gongzi's manner of speech and bearing, you're really not a person of the small pond. But why would you become a Tatar official and willingly work for Kangxi? Zhu Mingxi tilted her head and stared at Song Qingshu. If I said that we have the same goal, but the method we chose is different, would you believe me? Song Qingshu said with a wry smile. Of course I didn't believe it before, but after talking with Gongzi today, I believe it. With your spirit, I know that you're not willing to be a Tatar lackey. Zhu Mingxi looked at him, and felt that there was now a ray of light in the previously gloomy future. Song Qing was suddenly filled with emotion. I used to try hard to change the color of my lips, but some of my friends didn't understand me. I didn't expect that Princess would choose to believe me with just a few words. It's really, are we just acquaintances? Zhu Mengxi's voice was clear, with a bit of tenderness. Right. Why did you come a Blackwood Cliff this time? Chapter 200. As soon as Song Qingshu said those words, he cursed in his heart. Hearing his words, Zhu Yanai's expression changed slightly. But since the holy maiden of the Ming dynasty is the 9th princess, and we are old acquaintances, I will naturally give up on this mission. Song Qingshu smirked. I'm curious, if we don't know each other, how are you going to destroy my chastity? Zhu Yanai blushed and snorted angrily. Of course, I will use all kinds of despicable means, such as drugs, Song Qingshu said frankly. I hope the 9th princess can forgive me. I have an irreconcilable hatred with Zhang Wuji. I have always been happy to do anything that can attack the Ming dynasty. I see. Zhu Yanai suddenly understood, but she quickly showed a trace of regret. It's really a pity. Both of you are knowledgeable people. If you could join hands, I'm afraid there would be few opponents in the world. There is no possibility of me joining hands with him. Although Song Qingshu's tone was light, his determination was very obvious. What is the hatred between the two of you? Zhu and I really could not figure out why two people who were completely unrelated to each other would have such a deep hatred. Song Qingshu held his breath. He subconsciously did not want her to know that the hatred between him and Zhang Wuji was because of a woman, so he could only say vaguely, the reason is really hard to explain. 9th lady, you only need to know that he can't wait to kill me, and I can't wait to kill him. All right, I won't ask. Zhu and I was silent for a moment. But I have another question to ask you. I heard that you were also on the Jade Emperor Peak that day. I just want to know how Yuan Qingji died? Her voice was slightly trembling, and it was obvious that she was very sad. Yuan Qingji died in the hands of Dongfang Bubi. Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment, but decided to tell the truth, so he replayed the situation that day. It really is Dongfang Bubi. Zhu Yanai's eyes were filled with tears, and she said while gritting her teeth, 9th princess, can you listen to me? Song Qingshu saw that Zhu Yong was looking at him with an inquiring look, so he hurriedly said, a fugitive with a sharp knife blocked the road and killed a passing scholar. Finally, he was arrested and brought to justice. When the county magistrate judged the case, did he judge the sharp knife as the murderer or the fugitive as the murderer? Song Qingshu muttered to himself, it's better for you to die than for me. For the sake of Dongfang Muxue, I can only sacrifice Kangxi. I understand what you mean. Zhu Yu pinched her sleeves and gently wiped the corners of her eyes. Although Kangxi is the culprit, Invincible East is the one who killed Big Brother Yuan. I can't forgive him. Prince Song, is your relationship with Invincible East very good? Song Qingshu was shocked when she glanced at him with her limpid eyes. How did she know? After thinking for a moment, he decided to tell her the truth. Yes, my relationship with Invincible East is indeed good. I heard that you and Invincible East were beaten down a cliff by Ruin Wuxing and the others. Since you're fine now, is Invincible East still alive? Zhu Yu looked at him with a burning gaze, waiting for his answer. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Who told you that we were beaten down the cliff by Ruin Wuxing? How could he be so powerful? If it wasn't for Zhang Wuji's sneak attack, Invincible East, and I would have been seriously injured and had to jump down the cliff. When I woke up, I found myself hanging on a tree that protruded from the cliff. That's how I survived. As for Invincible East, I didn't see him anywhere. I'm afraid he's been smashed to pieces. However, his martial arts are too high, so he might be able to escape. He didn't intend to reveal the news that Invincible East was still alive. Otherwise, if Zhang Wuji and Ren Wuxing wanted to investigate, Dongfang Muxue might be in danger in the Five Poisons sect. However, he didn't want Zhu Yu to know the truth in the future and resent him. Thus, he spoke ambiguously. Heaven helps the worthy. You're protected by heaven, but Invincible East probably won't be so lucky. A hint of joy flashed between Zhu Yu's brows. In her opinion, Invincible East was probably smashed to pieces after falling down the cliff. Prince Song, what do you plan to do in the future? Are you going to return to Yinjing to help the evildoers? Zhu Yu asked. For now, I'm afraid so, Song Qingshu said in a low voice. Zhu Yu sighed and didn't try to persuade him anymore. Instead, she said, although Ren Wuxing doesn't have people outside, it's very likely that he purposely made you lower your guard. It's too risky for you to go out directly. How about this? I'm going to Shengjing tomorrow anyway, so I'll bring you down the mountain. Thank you for your kindness, Ninth Princess, but it's too risky for you to bring me down the mountain with your current identity. Let me say something arrogant. As long as I want to leave, there are only a few people in this world who can stop me. Unfortunately, Ren Wuxing isn't one of them. I'll just go down the mountain later. Song Qingshu tactfully refused. Ajo has forgotten that I've seen young masters Qinggong before. Zhu Yu was startled and suddenly laughed. That's good too. The room fell into silence. Song Qingshu knew it was time to leave, but looking at her beautiful face, he was reluctant to part with her. He suddenly thought of a question and quickly asked, why did the Ninth Princess travel thousands of miles to Shengjing? If it's a secret and it's not convenient to tell you, then forget it. He was wondering if the Ming dynasty had made a big move again. He wanted to see if he could get some clues from Zhu Yu's mouth. It's just my private matter, so there's no harm in telling you. A few days ago, I received news that an old friend had appeared in Shengjing. I was worried that she would make a decision that she would regret for the rest of her life, so I planned to go and dissuade her. Zhu Yu's voice was full of worry. An old friend? Song Qingshu was puzzled. Zhou's country had long been destroyed, and the one who could be called an old friend was at most Yuan Qingji. Wait, Yuan Qingji? Song Qingshu's expression suddenly changed. He hugged Zhu Yu's shoulders and asked excitedly, the old friend that Ninth Princess mentioned, is it you? Oh no, Xia Qingqing? Zhu Yu's shoulders sank, and she cleverly let go of his hands. She raised her head in puzzlement and asked, you also know her? Song Qingshu nodded. We've gone through trials and tribulations together a few times, so we should be considered good friends. So that's how it is. I didn't expect that after going around in a big circle, we've crossed paths even more. Zhu Yu smiled. Since young master is her good friend, you must know that after Yuan Qingji died, she must be anxious to get revenge. Yes, I originally promised to help her get revenge, but unfortunately, someone made trouble, causing her to suspect me and suddenly disappear. During this time, I've been looking for her. Finally hearing the news about Xia Qingqing, Song Qingshu couldn't help but be a little excited. Zhu Yu looked at him with a strange expression. No wonder Qingqing doesn't believe you. You're now a high-ranking official of the Manchurian dynasty, and you're good friends with Dongfang Bubi. When I heard you say that you'll help her get revenge, I felt that it was absurd. I didn't lie to her. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly, but he didn't explain further. Some things couldn't be explained. All right, for the time being, what you said is true. It's just that Qingqing's situation is a little troublesome. Zhu Yu looked worried. What happened to her? Song Qingshu asked hurriedly. Seeing his nervous expression, Zhu Yu, who had always been quick-witted, couldn't help but feel suspicious. However, without concrete evidence, she couldn't make wild guesses, so she could only answer, I'm not afraid to say it out loud, young master. When I learned that something happened to Big Brother Yuan, I was sad and immediately decided to get revenge for him. Qingqing loves Big Brother Yuan 100 times more than me, so naturally, she has the same idea. I know that Qingqing has always been extreme, so I was worried that she would do anything to get revenge and hurt herself in the end, so I sent people to find out about her. Finally, I found out her whereabouts in Shengjing City. According to the spy's report, she seems to have become Prince Bao's concubine. Song Qingshu suddenly felt like he was struck by lightning, and he muttered to himself, how is it possible? How is it possible? I can roughly guess that she used this strategy to get rid of Kangxi, but the power structure of the Manchurian court is extremely complicated. I'm worried that she'll suffer a double loss if she doesn't know the situation, so I decided to go to Shengjing City to find her. Zhu Yu disagreed with Xia Qingqing's decision. If Big Brother Yuan knew this in the underworld, he would definitely be very sad. Song Qingshu was sad, and angry. Luo Bing, this bitch, if she falls into my hands again, I'll definitely make her regret talking too much. Nine Princess, I have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Dozens of thoughts flashed through Song Qingshu's mind, and his emotions finally calmed down. He cupped his hands at Zhu Yu. You're going to Shengjing City? Zhu Yu asked in surprise. Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment, and then nodded. Maybe we can meet again in Shengjing City. Do you like Qingqing? Various signs verified Zhu Yu's previous guess, and she finally couldn't help but ask. Song Qingshu had just opened the window, and when he heard this, he froze. He turned around and smiled, but didn't answer, and directly disappeared into the night sky. Seeing that he didn't deny it, Zhu Yu was a little stunned for a moment. She thought to herself, Big Brother Yuan has just passed away, and with Qingqing's character, it's impossible for her to accept another man's feelings. But I can feel Song Qingshu's sincerity, so how can Xia Qingqing not know? Alas, it's another bitter love. Big Brother Yuan and I were also like this. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel a trace of sympathy for him. Song Qingshu forcibly used the traceless treading through sand, and after dawn, he arrived at Baoding Prefecture in Hebei Province. Feeling that the true qi in his body was a little exhausted, he had to stop and buy tea and snacks in a tea house next to the post road. Not long after eating, he heard two familiar voices. Lord Song and sect leader Dongfang have fallen off the cliff for so long, but the spies still haven't found any news. The Emperor has even sent the Imperial Guards. If they still can't find any news, they might lose their heads when they go back. Isn't that so? Waiter, bring all the good food and drinks here to me. When Zhang Kangyan heard Zhao Qixin stuttering, he couldn't help but follow his gaze. At the same time, he teased, bring your head. Did you see a ghost? Oh my God, a ghost. I'm too tired today. Let's take a break and continue tomorrow. Chapter 201. In broad daylight, ghost my ass. Song Qingshu scolded with a smile. Zhang Kangyan and Zhao Qixin reacted and immediately leaned over with a flattering smile. A few months ago, there was news from Blackwood Cliff. We heard that Darren Song and Dongfang sect leader were both knocked off the cliff. We thought, Darren Song was really lucky and managed to turn misfortune into blessing. This way, His Majesty will be very happy. Is that so? Song Qingshu didn't deny it. As Imperial bodyguards, why did you come here? It's to find out about Darren's news. His Majesty is anxious and sent out waves after waves of spies, but there was no news, so he sent us out as well. The only thing left is for him to personally lead the army. Darren Song, us brothers have been serving for so long. Other than the previous Wei Ju, we have never seen His Majesty care so much about any official. Zhao Qixin's tone was full of envy. Song Qingshu smiled faintly and did not reply. In the eyes of these natives, Kangxi's action was naturally an enormous favor, but for a transmigrator like him, it was nothing. A subject was a subject, after all, even if it was a subject who was as favored as Wei Xiaobao. In the eyes of the Emperor, he was nothing more than a servant. How could this be considered an honor? All right, Darren Song. Are you rushing back to Yinjing to report? Why don't we set off immediately? His Majesty is already restless waiting for news from you. Zhang Kangyan saw that Song Qingshu was travel-worn and asked tentatively. At the same time, he felt sweet in his heart. We brothers found Darren Song as soon as we came out. When we go back, the Emperor will definitely reward us a lot. No, I have something to do in Shengjing. I'll have to trouble you two to help me report to His Majesty. Song Qingshu was annoyed. Compared to Xia Qingqing's matter, meeting Kangxi later was nothing. Zhang Kangyan and Zhao Qixin looked at each other and turned pale with fright. Darren Song, forgive me for talking too much. Since ancient times, only officials wait for the Emperor. Since when did the Emperor wait for his officials? If the Emperor gets angry, I'm afraid it won't be good for Darren Song. Can't you just go back and say that you've never seen me before? At that time, His Majesty will not blame us, and I will remember the two of you. Song Qing-shu put his arms around their shoulders and said in a low voice. Zhang Kanyan and Zhao Qixuan were so frightened that they hurriedly struggled free and begged, Darren Song, it's not that we don't want to help, but deceiving His Majesty is a great crime. Since it's like this, go back and tell the truth. I must go to Xinjing and explain my difficulties to the Emperor when I come back, Song Qing-shu said resolutely. Zhang Kanyan was usually quick-witted. Seeing Song Qing-shu's unyielding attitude, he rolled his eyes and thought of a way. May I know what business Song Darren has in Shangjing? Song Qing-shu frowned and said unhappily, it's a private matter. I can't tell you. Zhang Kanyan said, Darren has misunderstood. How would I dare to pry into Darren's business? It's just that Shangjing is Bao Qinhuang's territory. I'm afraid it won't be convenient for Darren Song to go there. We are accompanying His Majesty and just happen to know that His Majesty is preparing to send an official to Shangjing. After Darren Song returns to the capital, this important task will definitely fall into Darren's hands. Really? Song Qing-shu? Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. That's right. Zhao Qixuan also reacted and echoed. No matter what Darren wants to do, with the identity of an imperial envoy, it will be much more convenient for you to do things. Song Qing-shu pondered in his heart. The future of this trip to Shangjing is uncertain. Not to mention Hong Li and Fu Kangon. Even the Jianghu sects like the Red Flower Society are not easy to deal with. With the imperial court's banner, dealing with them will indeed increase the odds of success. Making up his mind, Song Qing-shu raised his head and said, All right, I'll follow you to the palace to see His Majesty first. Zhang Kanyan and Zhao Qixuan were immediately overjoyed. They hurriedly said, Many thanks for Darren's understanding. How about Darren first eat some food and drink and rest before we continue on our way? No need. I've already rested well. Let's go first. Song Qing-shu was worried about Xia Qingqing and Shangjing. So how could he be in the mood to waste time? Yes. The two nodded and bowed. They hurriedly pulled over a fine horse. His Majesty sympathizes with us. These people who came out to investigate are all one person riding two horses. Darren Song, this way please. Song Qing-shu nodded. Turning over, he mounted the horse and galloped towards Yanjing. You stinking brat, since you're fine, why haven't you sent back any news after so long? Are you living a befuddled life somewhere and have forgotten about Jin? When Kangxi saw Song Qing-shu, he was so excited that he jumped down from the dragon chair. Why are you making it sound so mushy? I'm not your good friend Wei Xiaobao. Song Qing-shu cursed in his heart. He had no choice but to answer. Reporting to Your Majesty, that day, sect leader Dongfang and I fell off the cliff and were seriously injured. We also had to escape from Ren Wuxing and the others, so we couldn't send any news. I hope Your Majesty can forgive us. The situation was critical at that time. I can understand. Kangxi patted his shoulder to comfort him. Where is sect leader Dongfang now? Is he well? Song Qing-shu hesitated for a moment, but still said, Sect leader Dongfang was slightly injured. He's currently recuperating in the Five Poison sect in Dali. Then he briefly told Kangxi what happened on Blackwood Cliff that day. The Ming Dynasty's sect leader, Zhang Wuji. Kangxi seemed to be deep in thought. A strange light flashed across his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. Ren Wuxing is now the Sun Moon sect's sect leader. How dare they? One day, I'll make them pay the price. But now, I have another more urgent matter for you to attend to. Here it comes. Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He pretended to be puzzled. I wonder what matter Your Majesty is referring to. I'm planning to send the imperial envoy to Shang capital. I was originally having a headache over who to choose. Xiao Bao is dead, and you're nowhere to be found. I thought that you've met with misfortune. I can't think of anyone to send. When Kangxi mentioned Wei Xiaobao, a trace of sorrow flashed across his face. I'm willing to share Your Majesty's worries. Song Qing-shu bowed. May I know what Your Majesty needs the imperial envoy to do? It's the mess in Janning last time. Kangxi snorted coldly. For the past few months, The imperial court hasn't expressed their stance on this matter. It's causing Shang capital to be bewildered. According to the spy's report, Prince Bao has secretly mobilized his troops from the northern front line. He seems to be guarding against the imperial court's sudden dispatch of troops. I'm worried that the front line's military strength will be insufficient to defend against the Mongolian army. I can only send someone to appease him. But Fu Qinggan has insulted the princess and indirectly caused Wei Juai's death. If we let them go just like that, it seems to damage the imperial court's prestige. Won't Prince Bao be cocky? Song Qingshu knew that Kangxi could tolerate this, but he didn't expect him to be this tolerant. It's just a mere Janning. Not to mention that she's a fake princess. Even if she's a real princess, it doesn't matter if she dies for the sake of the Qing dynasty. Kangxi snorted coldly. As for Xiaobao's revenge, I'll naturally avenge him. As the saying goes, an arrogant army is bound to be defeated. If a general wants to take something, he must first give it. I just want Prince Bao to be cocky. Yes. Song Qingshu felt a chill in his heart. He bowed respectfully. After a moment of silence, Kangxi suddenly said, "By the way, after you reward the 3 armies on my behalf and take the opportunity to appease Prince Bao, bring Crown Prince Fu Qinggan and represent the Qing dynasty to participate in the marriage of Princess Yinchuan of Western Xia." What? Song Qingshu was shocked. Marriage of Western Xia? Yes. Not long ago, the Emperor of Western Xia announced to the world that he'll choose the most favored Princess Yinchuan as the Emperor's son-in-law from among the young talents of the world. Kangxi snorted coldly. That's a nice way of putting it. As long as the age is suitable, it'll only be based on ability and not family background. In the end, the Emperor's son-in-law will still be selected from the princes and grandsons of the various countries. But why did they give such a precious place to Fu Qinggan? It'd be better to choose any Baile from the imperial family in the capital. If Fu Qinggan becomes the Emperor's son-in-law of Western Xia, then Prince Bao will have a strong ally in Western Xia. Song Qingshu was puzzled. Precious? Kangxi smiled mysteriously. Western Xia and the Qing dynasty are separated by the Jin kingdom and Liao. It's a fool's dream to want to help each other. The Emperor's son-in-law of Western Xia is of little value. Besides, although Fu Qinggan has some ability, there are so many heroes in the world. Will he be able to become the Emperor's son-in-law, even if I send him? It's just a beautiful dream that I weave for this father and son. Your Majesty is wise. Song Qingshu thought, it's fine if I know that Kangxi will make a move against Hong Li sooner or later. But Hong Li and Fu Qinggan, father and son, are involved in the game. With the sweet date, they might have a fluke mentality. They might not even know how they die in the future. There's one more thing. Kangxi suddenly became silent. It was obvious that he was hesitating. Finally, he said, "When you go to Xinjing, help me find a scripture in Prince Bao's mansion." Scripture? Song Qingshu was secretly shocked. Could it be? Sure enough, Kangxi continued, a Buddhist scripture, the 42-chapter sutra. Hong Li is the banner leader of the plain white banner. The 42-chapter sutra in his possession is made of white silk. I don't know what's so precious about this Buddhist scripture. Why did Your Majesty ask me to steal such an ordinary Buddhist scripture? Song Qingshu asked tentatively. Kangxi did not hesitate. He said directly, Qingshu, you have made great contributions several times. You are loyal and devoted. There's no harm in telling you. These 8 42-chapter sutra are related to the treasures outside the Great Qing's pass. They are also related to the destiny of the Great Qing's dragon vein. But now Liaodong is under the control of Prince Bao. I was worried that he would find out about this secret. Therefore, I burned the plain yellow banner's copy. Originally, not one of the 8 42-chapter sutra could be missing. If I destroyed one, I should be able to rest easy. But there are too many capable and righteous people in the world. Prince Bao is also familiar with the northeast environment. I was worried that he would infer something from the incomplete information. Therefore, I plan to destroy one more copy. That way, I would have more assurance. Unfortunately, Wei Xiaobao has already replaced the treasure map in your plain yellow banner's copy. Song Qing-shu pretended to be shocked, but he was sneering in his heart. Chapter 202. I stole the 42-chapter sutra from Wu Sangui's wife's bed. How can I tell you that? Although he was thinking this, Song Qing-shu answered seriously, Your Majesty, I didn't see the 42-chapter sutra when I was sorting out Lord Wei's belongings. Could it be that he was killed not long after he arrived at Shanghai Pass, so he didn't have time to find the sutra? What you said is not without reason. Kangxi nodded. Wu Sangui is a wily old fox. Xiaobao probably wouldn't be able to find him in a short time, and then he was killed. He sighed deeply. Your Majesty, please restrain your grief. Song Qing-shu was confused. If Kangxi knew I was the murderer, how would he deal with me? It's fine if you can't find Wu Sangui's 42-chapter sutra, but you must find Hongli's 42-chapter sutra for me. Before you and Fu Qinggan go to Western Xia, return to the capital and take the opportunity to give me the 42-chapter sutra. Do you understand? Kangxi said. Yes, Your Majesty. I plan to leave today. Song Qing-shu was worried about Xia Qingqing and didn't want to waste a day. So soon? Kangxi was surprised. That's good. I was going to ask you to visit Xiaobao's widow and see if she needs anything. Shuang'er, in his mind, the image of a spotless, fair-skinned girl dressed in mourning clothes appeared. Song Qing-shu hesitated for a moment before saying, I have just returned from Shengjing. I will definitely visit her. Kangxi nodded. Very well. I'll send Zhang Kongyin and Zhao Qixian with a team of imperial bodyguards to go with you. If there's anything, I'll have someone to instruct. Thank you, Your Majesty. Song Qing-shu stepped out of the imperial study. Before leaving, he looked back at the horizontal board on the door, his thoughts complicated. I can see the hesitation in your eyes. I don't know what's making you so conflicted. Patriarch Sunflower's voice came from the shadows behind the rockery. Song Qing-shu glared at the old eunuch and said grumpily, I also see something in your eyes. What? Patriarch Sunflower asked in surprise. I wax. Song Qing laughed and swaggered away. When he turned around, his face changed. This old faker is a little troublesome. Watching Song Qing-shu's disappearing figure, Patriarch Sunflower laughed involuntarily and returned to the darkness. Lord Song, you're really lucky to be appointed an imperial envoy by His Majesty as soon as you came back. On the way to Shengjing, Zhang Kongyin and Zhao Qixian came to Song Qing-shu's side and said with a flattering smile, You're right. Thank you for your guidance last time. I will remember this kindness. Although Song Qing-shu was anxious, he still maintained a pleasant expression when facing the two of them. Thank you for your guidance last time. Zhang Kongyin and Zhao Qixian repeatedly waved their hands. Darren Song's words are too serious. We brothers have been on the job for so long, and other than Wei Juai, only Darren Song is treated as one of our own by our superiors. We regard Darren as one of our own, so naturally we will speak our mind to Darren Song. In the future, Lord Song will be in charge of the sticking department. In the palace, you'll be second only to the emperor. You just need to take care of us. Song Qing-shu gave a hollow laugh. Hey, what? Hey, you two are quite well informed. The sticking department hasn't even taken shape yet, and you're already so clear about it. Well, my sticking department is short of people. Are you interested in joining? The two looked at each other and said happily, Can we really join? Although your martial arts are so-so, you have good manners. You could do some administrative work in the future. Besides, the sticking department is closer to the intelligence department. As long as you're used properly, you'll be more useful than any martial arts master. Song Qing-shu nodded with a smile. Zhang Kongyin and Zhao Qixian were tactfully pointed out that their martial arts were not good. They couldn't help but feel embarrassed. But listening to the meaning of his words, although they didn't quite understand some of the words, they understood the general meaning. They couldn't help but say excitedly, Thank you, Lord Song, for promoting us. We brothers also know that our martial arts are not good. It's only thanks to our ancestors that we were able to become the imperial bodyguards. Previously, Chief Duo didn't choose us to join the flying guillotine. Although he didn't say it clearly, we knew that he despised our low martial arts. As he spoke, his tone became gloomy. Zhao Qixin also felt the same way. We are ordinary disciples of the Eight Banners. We're neither good in literature nor in martial arts. At most, we'll be second-class imperial bodyguards. But which man doesn't want to make a name for himself and bring honor to his ancestors? Even when he comes home for the new year, his parents will have face. Thank you, Lord Song, for giving us this opportunity. As long as you follow me wholeheartedly, you'll get more than you can imagine. But I reckon that at some point, you won't be able to persevere. Song Qingshu said with a faint smile. The two of them straightened their expressions and said solemnly, people like us don't have much ability. If we can't even persevere on something like this, we deserve to be looked down upon by others for the rest of our lives. It's still too early to say these things. We'll see when the day comes. Song Qingshu stopped the two of them from continuing to express their loyalty. He opened his mouth and said, you two also know that I have an important matter that requires me to rush to Shengjing as soon as possible. But right now, the group of envoys is moving too slowly. Do you have any good ideas? Zhang Kongyan was stunned. He said confidently, this is easy. Darren can choose a dozen or so highly skilled imperial bodyguards to travel in light carriages and have the main group continue to advance at the original speed. On one hand, it can solve Darren's worries. On the other hand, when the Emperor asks about it in the future, Darren can say that you use the main group to paralyze Shengjing. Then, you disguise yourself and went to Shengjing to gather information. Isn't this the best of both worlds? Song Qingshu looked at him in surprise. I couldn't tell that you were such a talent. Although Zhang Kongyan and Zhao Qixin's martial arts were not very good, they had grown up in the imperial city and were born in noble families. It could be said that they knew the officialdom like the back of their hands. In the future, they had to use their talents in this area. Darren Song, you flatter me, you flatter me. Zhang Kongyan rubbed his hands together as he spoke. His eyes narrowed into slits as he smiled. It was clear that he enjoyed it very much. All right, let's not flatter each other. You two are more familiar with these guards. Go pick 10 agile guards. Then, we will be on our way immediately. Song Qingshu laughed as he scolded them. Yes, the two of them happily ran off to pick their guards. The group of people traveled lightly. One person and 2 horses, they got closer and closer to Shengjing. One day, it suddenly rained heavily. The group of people hurriedly ran to a nearby run-down temple to hide. Not long after they settled down, noisy footsteps suddenly came from outside. It seemed that 2 people had arrived at the entrance of the temple. However, for some reason, they did not come in. Song Qingshu's martial arts were profound. The whispers outside quickly reached his ears. The horses outside the temple are obviously not owned by ordinary martial artists. This rundown temple is very likely to have hidden dragons and crouching tigers. We have goods on us, so it is better to be more cautious. Why don't we hurry a bit more and go to the small town in front to rest? A rough voice sounded. Senior brother, the goods we bet on this trip are not even worth the price of a few horses. Do you think they will have designs on our goods? It's raining so heavily. Don't let Debeo and Debeo get wet. If you want to go, you can go by yourself. I won't leave anyway. The woman's voice carried a trace of tiredness in her sweet and innocent voice. She was probably just recovering from serious injury. Who cares about Debeo and Debeo? It's all that man's fault. The man's voice suddenly stopped. The rest of his words were obviously swallowed by the woman's glare. You clearly said that you won't mention the past anymore. Why are you still? The woman's voice carried a sobbing tone. The man hurriedly comforted her. Song Qingshu listened and laughed. It was probably another happy father. Not long after, a man and a woman walked in. The man's appearance was ordinary. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes. It was obvious that he was a Jianghu ruffian. The woman was different. She had a round oval face. Her eyes were dark and her cheeks were flushed. From time to time, a weak pale color would appear. Although she was dressed like a peasant woman, it could not hide her beauty. In her arms were 2 infants who were still in swaddling clothes. Most of her clothes were wet, but the 2 infants' bodies were completely dry. Song Qingshu was impressed by her. Soon, there was a frivolous whistle. It turned out that the woman had a plump and round figure. Her clothes were soaked by the rain. Her clothes stuck to her flesh as if they were translucent. The imperial guards under Song Qing-shu were not kind people. Seeing such a beautiful scene, they naturally screamed with excitement. If it were not for the presence of Song Qing-shu, they might have walked over and directly molested the little woman. Hearing the endless whistling, the woman's senior brother or husband could not help but be angry. However, seeing that Song Qing-shu and his men were all fierce and had Buddhist commandment blades at their waists, he hesitated for a moment and had to stare at them. Intentionally or unintentionally, he stood in front of his wife. "Little lady, why don't you come over here and warm yourself by the fire? Yes, my brother's side is full of men. They are hot and will dry the wet clothes in a while. Yes, looking at your age, I'm afraid that your body is weak now. If you catch a cold, I'm afraid that you will be ill for the rest of your life. Take off your clothes. We promise not to look." As soon as the words came out, the guards suddenly burst into laughter. "You!" The woman was ashamed and angry. The man next to her stood up with a knife and glared at the crowd. "Oh, what? You want to fight?" Seeing this, the imperial guards also stood up and pulled out the knives at their waists. Suddenly, the temple was filled with cold light. Song Qing-shu frowned. This group of ruffians were used to being arrogant in the capital. Naturally, they restrained themselves in the presence of the emperor. Outside the capital, they naturally had a natural sense of superiority and were a little bolder than usual. "You two don't have to worry. My men are all rough people. They're used to joking. Although their words are not pleasant to hear, they will not really have any evil intentions. You two can rest assured," Song Qing-shu said lightly. Hearing Lord Song's words, the guards naturally did not dare to be too rash. They quickly put away their knives with embarrassed expressions and sat down. Only then did the two see Song Qing-shu in the corner. The woman saw his sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. He sat there with a dignified bearing and a grandmaster's temperament. She was in a trance. He was such a person in the past. Chapter 203. The man frowned. When he turned around and saw the guards staring at him, he felt irritated. "Bear with it for a while. You can feed them when the rain stops. But they're crying so hard." The woman's voice was full of pity. She bit her lips. If they see it, then so be it. Which mother doesn't want to be stared at when she's feeding her child? No. The man's face was ashen. The two children were that man's bastard children. He didn't fall to his death because of the woman. When he thought about how he allowed his junior sister to be taken advantage of by another man for the sake of these two bastard children, he was instantly filled with anger. Why? The woman was also very angry. Her son's crying made her panic. She quickly reacted. "Are you not going to love them because they're not your sons? You clearly said that you treat them as your own flesh and blood." "No, I'm not." The man's eyes were evasive. It was obvious that his thoughts were exposed. Seeing his expression, the woman immediately understood everything. But she also knew that he couldn't be blamed. Thinking about her own experience, she couldn't help but feel sad. She choked with sobs. "Little girl, why are you crying? Is it because your man isn't good to you? I'll beat him up for you." The two of them lowered their voices. The guards didn't hear their conversation clearly. Instead, they heard the woman sobbing. They immediately burst into an uproar. "You bastards, how many days have you been away from the capital? Is it because you left your wives that you want to F***ck every woman you see?" This group of people was personally chosen by him. Zhao Qixian was worried that Song Qing-shu would be unhappy. He quickly stood up and shouted, "How could we, Brother Zhao? You know us. We're just talking. We don't dare to do anything." The guards said one after another. They quickly turned to Song Qing-shu. "We're used to being rude. Please don't be offended." Song Qing-shu nodded slightly. He didn't mind. He turned to look at the couple. "Madam's body is weak. She's wet. I'm afraid it's not good. If you don't mind, you could go behind me and change into clean clothes. Don't worry. No one will dare to look here. Don't you think so?" He smiled at the guards. "We don't dare since you've asked." All the guards chuckled and hastily sat up with their backs, facing Song Qing-shu. They looked down at their noses at their hearts. and their eyes looked straight ahead. The woman's face turned red and was about to refuse when a gust of cold wind blew past, causing her to shiver. She then heard a man's voice. "You can still nurse the baby from behind me. Don't worry, they won't dare to look, and I won't look back either." She could tell that it was the young master's voice. Seeing that her husband didn't seem to notice anything, the woman looked at Song Qing-shu in confusion. Naturally, she didn't know that this was the martial arts world's secret voice-transmitting technique. She hesitated for a moment and then nodded. When a man saw her walking over there, he was shocked and grabbed her wrist. "I'm just saying, do you really believe it?" The woman still remembered the young man's pure and flawless eyes. She nodded firmly and said, "I believe he's not that kind of person." Then, she shook off his arm and walked away. Song Qing-shu smiled and nodded. He said in a low voice, "Madam, don't worry. I won't look back." She nodded. When she passed Song Qing-shu, she said in a low voice, "Thank you." "Okay." The woman snorted. She took out clean clothes from her bag and was about to change. She saw the man beside her. She blushed. "You go over there. Turn your back to me." The man was angry. "I'm your husband now. Why don't you let me look at you?" "I'm sorry. Brother, please give me more time." The woman understood that it was too difficult for a man. However, she couldn't get over it. "Okay, let's not talk about this. You'd rather stay behind a strange man and change clothes than let me stay in front of you?" The man was still angry. Song Qing-shu couldn't listen to it anymore. He said coldly, "If I stay behind you, you can make us not look at your wife. Otherwise, it's better to let your wife change her clothes. Otherwise, it's not a joke." The man was annoyed, but he couldn't refute. He walked to the door of the temple and sat there sulking. Seeing that all the men in the room had their backs to her, the woman bit her lips. She finally took off her wet clothes shyly. Although she knew that those people couldn't see her, she still squatted down and hid behind Song Qing-shu, letting Song Qing-shu's figure completely block her. Only then did she start to change into new clothes. This man is really a good-for-nothing. He let his wife stay with him with just a few words from our young master. Exactly. It seems that he hasn't even touched his wife's body. He might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. When the man at the temple door heard this, he was furious. However, the guard's guess was not far from the truth. Unable to vent his anger, he only felt that his whole body was about to explode. He got up and walked out, wanting to use the cold rain to calm himself down. The woman cried out when she saw that her husband had abandoned her and left her naked behind a group of strange men. What a group of pig teammates. Song Qing-shu was speechless. He sensed the movement behind him and comforted, "Don't worry, madam. Your husband is only standing in the courtyard. He hasn't gone far." "Thank you, young master. I'm afraid it will take a little more time." The woman sped up the pace of putting on her clothes. Soon, the baby's cries disappeared and were replaced by soft sucking sounds. Song Qing-shu knew that she was breastfeeding. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The woman didn't have the slightest smell of perfume. It was hard to imagine. However, the clean and simple smell of locust leaves a good impression. There seemed to be a hint of milk fragrance in the air. After a long time, the woman seemed to have finished breastfeeding the child. She packed her belongings and walked out with her son in her arms. Perhaps she had sat cross-legged for too long and her body was weak. As soon as she stood up, she felt her vision go black and she fell to the ground. Song Qing-shu had noticed her abnormality. He quickly reached out and held her. He felt extremely soft in his arms. After a moment of surprise, he felt embarrassed. He was worried that she would mistakenly think that he was taking advantage of her. According to Song Qing-shu's character, if he really wanted to take advantage of this woman, he could have just pointed out the people in the hall and turned around. It wouldn't have been difficult for him to have a quick, friendly match. However, he clearly didn't want to take advantage of her, but she misunderstood him. It was rare for him to be a gentleman, but his image was destroyed at the last moment. Naturally, he felt very uncomfortable and sullen. After a moment of absent-mindedness, the woman finally came back to her senses. Her first reaction was to look at her son in her arms. Seeing that they were all carried by the young man, she let out a long sigh of relief. However, She soon felt that the man's hand was tightly pressed against her chest in order to hold the child. Women who were breastfeeding were extremely sensitive. The woman immediately blushed. Thank you, young master. Madam can't say anything else other than thank you, young master. Song Qingshu smiled and straightened the woman's body. He looked at her with amusement. When the woman saw his handsome face, she couldn't help but think of a ridiculous thing in the past. She said with an unnatural expression, "May I know your name, young master?" "You and I met by chance. After walking out of this broken temple, I'm afraid we will never meet again. Why should we know each other's names?" Song Qingshu said as he picked up the bag. She dropped on the ground and stuffed it back in her hands. The woman was stunned. After walking to the other side with her son in her arms, she still glanced at Song Qingshu from time to time, intentionally or unintentionally. Zhang Kongyan and Zhao Qixin looked at each other and secretly gave him a thumbs up. They mouthed the message, "Brilliant, truly brilliant. Once Lord Song makes a move, it is indeed extraordinary." The woman's husband also came back from outside. Seeing his wife who had already changed clothes, he snorted coldly and sat to the side, sulking. Seeing all this, the woman secretly sighed in her heart. Senior brother really loves me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have married me when I was pregnant before marriage. It's a pity that he's a coarse person. If he had taken care of us mother and son and not lost his temper from time to time, I'm not a blockhead. I'm afraid I would have given in to him long ago. Unfortunately, the more he behaves like this, the more I look down on him. While she was deep in thought, a group of people suddenly barged in through the door. Each of them had a saber on their waist. They didn't seem to be good people. The husband and wife thought that they were also here to hide from the rain, so they didn't pay much attention to them. Unexpectedly, one of them laughed and said, "The Pegasus escort agency is getting worse and worse. Now there are only 2 bodyguards, and one of them is even carrying 2 babies." Ha ha! The husband and wife were shocked when they were called out. They quietly held their weapons in their hands and looked at the crowd with vigilance. "Who are you? What do you want?" "Hee, you're the escort, and we're the robbers. What do you think we want?" The leader of the group snorted coldly. Then he looked at Song Qingshu and the others. He was also very worried. "My friends, this is a grudge between us and the Pegasus escort agency. Please abide by the rules of the martial world and don't interfere." Song Qingshu nodded slightly, and the group of bodyguards who were eager to try sat down one after another. The woman was very disappointed when she saw that he was indifferent. She thought about it again and realized that she and her husband were doing this for a living. It was normal for them to encounter robbers. Indeed, the robbers had no obligation to be her bodyguards. Moreover, they might be worried about the reputation of the agency. However, she was worried about her 2 sons. After hesitating for a while, she walked over and placed them in front of Song Qingshu. "I know this is too presumptuous, but can I ask you to help me take care of my 2 children?" Chapter 204. The 15 bandits in front and behind him were all mocking him. What galloping horse escort agency? When old Escort Ma was the escort agency, it was called Galloping Horse. In Sue's hands, it should have been called Dog Climbing Escort Agency. This kid has learned a few tricks up his sleeves. Instead of staying at home and playing with children, he comes out to embarrass himself. "Hey, Sue!" Quickly kneel down and kowtow 3 times, then our big brother will spare your dog life. Such a stupid escort agency. He can't even guarantee 9,000 taels of silver. He might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. Invincible Divine Fist Old Escort Ma was famous in the past. No one in the martial arts world didn't respect him. This useless kid really let his master down. I think his wife is 10 times stronger than him. It's really like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung. It makes people angry. Song Qingshu slowly understood what was going on. This couple was probably Su Zheng and Ma Chunhua from The Legend of the Flying Fox. Su Zheng was just a bystander, nothing much. This Ma Chunhua, on the other hand, was very famous. That day, she was dissatisfied with her marriage. In the end, she saw the handsome and elegant Fu Qinggan. Under a freak combination of factors, she actually got pregnant with him. In the end, she had no choice but to marry her martial brother Su Zheng. Fu Kang's son? Song Qing-shu sneered as he looked down at the two children who were still sleeping soundly in front of him. Young master, do you want to save them? It looks like they can't hold on much longer. Zhang Kunyan came over and asked quietly. Let's wait and see. Song Qing-shu shook his head. Listening to everybody's conversation just now, he thought that this group of bandits was very clear about Su Zheng's background. Not only did they know his martial arts background, they also knew the total amount of escort money he had secured. Their words were indeed extremely harsh and unkind toward him, but toward Ma Chunhua and her deceased father, they did not offend him at all. They even seemed to be rather respectful toward him. The bandits' attacks were fierce and accurate. Each one's martial arts skill was far superior to the husband and wife's combined effort. She could not help but feel strange. Although these people could not be considered as Jianghu's first-class fighters, with such martial arts skill, they must be famous people with a certain status. Looking at everyone's actions, they definitely weren't here for the mere 9,000 taels of silver. What was their objective? Song Qing-shu was not as familiar with the plot of The Legend of the Flying Fox as he was with the most famous novels, so he was immediately suspicious. Suddenly, there was a blood-curdling scream. Blood flowed from Su Zheng's thigh. The leader of the bandits raised his leg and kicked Su Zheng down to the ground. He stepped on Su Zheng and said with a cold laugh, I don't want her life. I just want to cripple your eyes and punish you to not have eyes. You are too muddle-headed. Su Zheng was scared and angry at the same time. His chest was blocked and he was unable to speak. Friends, Ma Chunhua called out, if you want the silver, just take it. We have no enmity with you in the past, so why do you have to be so ruthless? A sword-wielding bandit laughed and said, Miss Ma, you are a good person. Don't meddle in other people's business. Ma Chunhua said, what do you mean meddle in other people's business? He is my husband. Su Zheng's heart was moved when he heard this, but when he thought of his current sorry state, he felt even more ashamed. An old man among the bandits said, we looked down on his cowardly appearance, so we gave in to the beautiful and talented Miss Ma, and then we came from thousands of miles away. This injustice must be dealt with. Looks like it's because of Ma Chunhua. Song Qing-shu finally understood. Ma Chunhua. This name is really rural. What a waste of her looks and figure. Although Ma Chunhua is beautiful, she is not a beauty that can cause the downfall of a city. Why would they? Could it be Fu Kang'an? Song Qing-shu's thoughts turned like lightning, and he had already guessed the ins and outs of the matter. Shimmy and I are in love. We don't need you evil bandits to fight for justice. Su Zheng spat out a mouthful of blood and immediately let loose a torrent of abuse. The bandit leader's eyes turned cold, and he laughed coldly. You good-for-nothing, living on this earth is just asking for humiliation. As soon as he finished speaking, he exerted his qi and stamped on Su Zheng's body. With a few cracking sounds, Su Zheng screamed and died. Shige. Ma Chunhua was already weak, and seeing this, she became extremely emotional and fainted. Let's go. The bandit leader had just signaled his men to take Ma Chunhua away when Song Qing-shu stood up. He had just realized that something was wrong, but it was already too late to make a move. He could only watch as Su Zheng died, but Su Zheng was just a passerby to him. If he died, then so be it. It would be difficult to cause a ripple in his heart. On the other hand, after exchanging a few words with Ma Chunhua, Song Qing-shu could not just watch as she was taken away in front of him. The group of bandits had long been on guard against Song Qing-shu and the others. When they saw the situation, they drew their swords and slashed over. Song Qing-shu's face was as calm as water. His figure flashed past like smoke, and 7 or 8 people had already fallen while wailing. The bandit leader's heart turned cold. He knew that the other party's martial arts were much higher than his own, so he took out a poisonous needle and shot it towards the corner of the wall. Seeing the twin babies covered in poisonous needles, Song Qing-shu was surprised. He did not think that these people would do this to babies. According to his speculation, this group of bandits should be Fu Kang's men. How could they dare to harm Fu Kang's own flesh and blood? But how could Song Qing-shu understand that Fu Kangan himself did not know that he had two sons among the common people? How could his men know? The bandit leader thought that the twins were Su Zheng's sons, and with the intention to cut the weeds and get rid of the roots, he shot a poisonous needle at them. While Song Qing-shu was stunned, he took his men and ran away with Ma Chunhua. At this time, Song Qing-shu was extremely hesitant. If he wanted to chase after Ma Chunhua, the two children's lives would definitely be in danger. If he wanted to save the children, Song Qing-shu felt that he was being taken advantage of. This was clearly Fu Kang's own doing. Even God wanted him to die. Why should he care about this matter? If he saved Ma Chunhua, he might have a chance to practice the Zen of joy. What was the point of saving these two children? Although this was what he thought in his heart, Song Qing-shu finally sighed and chose to save the two children. He and Fu Kangan were indeed enemies, but between the two of them, they were young and plump, and the woman was small and delicate. They could do it openly, or they could use all sorts of tricks to fight to the death. Life and death depended on their own abilities. On the contrary, if he let the two little lives disappear in front of him, Song Qing-shu would be traumatized for the rest of his life, and the loss would outweigh the gain. He used his vital energy to suck the poisonous needle out of the children's bodies, and then took out the antidote pills that the poison hand king of medicine gave him. He split them in half, dissolved them in water, and quickly fed them to the two children. Fortunately, it was just an ordinary poisonous dart. Seeing that the two children's skin color gradually returned to normal, Song Qing-shu let out a long sigh of relief. On the side, Zhang Kengyan and Zhao Qixuan were whispering to each other. Didn't you just say that Song Darren's method is brilliant? First, he borrowed a knife to kill someone, and then he watched as the thief killed the woman's husband, and then he made his move to save her. The woman was lonely and had no one to rely on. It was easier for her to be, you understand. Hush, don't let Lord Song hear you. I never thought that Lord Song would actually give up a beautiful woman for two children who don't want to do anything. What are you two whispering about over there? Song Qing-shu listened in all directions and was suddenly speechless. We were talking about Lord Song's noble character and unquestionable integrity, and the legacy of our ancestors. Yes, not only are you calm, but you're also kind-hearted, admirable. Zhang Kengyan and Zhao Qixuan cooperated very well, and did not look like they were gossiping at all. All right. Even though Song Qing-shu's skin was thicker than a city wall, he could not resist such praise. He coughed, looked at the crowd, and asked, "Did you see where this group of people came from?" Replying to Lord Song, "I know one of the thieves. He seems to be working in Shengjing," a guard said. As expected, it seems that Ma Chunhua is not in danger for the time being. Song Qing-shu turned to look at the two children and thought to himself, after arriving in Shengjing, these two little brats might be able to play an unexpected role. Song Qing-shu and the rest were all men, and the two babies were crying and throwing a tantrum, which made the group helpless. Some looked for milk, some changed diapers, and some changed diapers. Song Qing-shu could feel the resentment of his guards increasing day by day. After arriving in Shengjing, he sent someone to look for a wet nurse, and the group could finally relax. "I'm going out for a walk. All of you have worked hard during this period. Take a good rest first. There might be something for you to do in the next few days." Song Qing-shu changed his clothes, and before he left, he instructed the crowd. Zhang Kengyan and Zhao Qixuan ran over. "Lord Song, let us accompany you. We can take care of you on the way." "There's no need. This place is full of danger. I'll be a smaller target if I go alone." Song Qing-shu declined and ran to the vicinity of Prince Bao's residence alone. Finally, he sat down in a tea house near the main entrance and stared at the various people going in and out, deep in thought. Suddenly, Song Qing-shu's gaze froze. She was wearing a bright green embroidered leather coat. The color was very bright, but it could not hide the fatigue on her face. It was Nan Lan, whom he had met once before. Song Qing-shu was very interested in this fair-skinned and beautiful woman. Not only did she abandon her husband and daughter and elope with her lover Tian Guinon, But more importantly, she had a unique temperament. If one had to describe it, it could be described as the delicate body of a rich young lady. With a thought, Song Qing-shu got up and quietly followed behind her. Looking at her mature and plump back, Song Qing-shu sighed. You were born at the wrong time. Being born in this era, it's only natural for you to be criticized by everyone. Not to mention that you were born in the era of my previous life where people laughed at the poor, or even in the era of the Republic of China, it wouldn't be difficult for you to be born with a bit of talent in addition to beauty. Thinking back, Lin Huiying spent her entire life with 3 men and married the mature and steady Liang Xiqing. Intentionally or unintentionally, she seduced the dissolute scholar Su Zhima and the aristocratic Jin Yuelin. One abandoned his wife for her, and the other refused to marry for her. 100 years later, she became the role model of a goddess. Let's not talk about that scumbag, Su Zhima. Old Jin, you're a tall, handsome, and rich man, but you've given up your whole life for Lin Huiying, just in exchange for a night of pleasure. Is it really worth it? Song Qing-shu expressed his feelings and faintly sighed. Chapter 205. Just now, Qing-shu happened to see Madam on the street and came over to greet you. Song Qing-shu unconsciously omitted a word from Madame Tian. Why does Madam look so worried? Nan Lan looked at him, her eyes filled with complexity. Speaking of which, it is all because of young master. Because of me? Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that I am so charming that a little woman like Nan Lan has fallen in love with me after just one meeting? It is not convenient to talk here. If Prince Song does not mind, can you follow me back to the Fu for a chat? While Song Qing-shu's thoughts were running wild, Nan Lan cautiously looked around. Convenient. Of course it is convenient. Song Qing-shu laughed foolishly and added in his heart, if it is convenient for a woman like you, why would it be inconvenient for me? Young master, please follow me. Nan Lan bowed slightly and led Song Qing-shu to the Tian Fu. Looking at her swaying back, Song Qing-shu touched his eyebrows. He struggled for a long time, but still followed. Young master, please have some tea. After entering the Tian Fu, Nan Lan brought out a cup of tea and placed it in front of Song Qing-shu. Song Qing-shu nodded in acknowledgement. Inadvertently, he saw 2 delicate collarbones peeking out from her collar when she bent over. His expression became unnatural, and he looked elsewhere. Seeing the rather deserted Tian Fu, Song Qing-shu asked in confusion, I thought it was strange just now. Your Fu seems rather desolate. Looking at the fallen leaves in the yard, it seems that no one has swept it for a while. Now that Madam has personally come to serve tea, is there not a single servant in the Fu? After putting down the tea tray, Nan Lan sat down on the chair opposite him. She looked rather tired. Hearing this, she smiled bitterly. I have made a fool of myself in front of Prince Song. There is indeed not a single servant in the Fu. Why is that? Song Qing-shu wondered if Tian Guanong had fallen to such an extent. He turned his head and looked around. All right, why don't I see Brother Tian? Is he on duty? Guanong. Hearing him mention Tian Guanong, Nan Lan's eyes immediately turned red. She opened her mouth several times, but couldn't say a complete sentence. In the end, she started sobbing. Madam, why are you doing this? Song Qing-shu was shocked. He quickly stood up from his chair and walked over to her, intending to comfort her. Unfortunately, he didn't know the cause and effect, so he didn't know how to comfort her. He reflexively wanted to pat her back, but suddenly realized that this was no longer the open era of his previous life. His hands were in the air, and he didn't know whether to put them down or not. It was rather awkward. Nan Lan noticed his movements, and her face reddened. She subconsciously moved to the side, took out a handkerchief from her bosom, and gently wiped the corners of her eyes. Gui Nong is currently in prison. Prison? Song Qing-shu was startled. Isn't Brother Tian Guanong Prince Bao's trusted aide? He definitely wasn't a trusted aide. Song Qing-shu's words were rather exaggerated. However, it was true that Tian Guanong was placed in an important position in Shengjing. From the last time Fu Qinggan went to Shanhai Pass, Tian Guanong had brought along his guards. This could be seen. Guanong was sent to prison by Prince Bao himself. He must have suffered a lot in prison. Nanlan had just finished speaking when she started sobbing again. What crime did Brother Tian Guanong commit? Song Qingshu suspected that in the original work, in order to cheat Nanlan of the treasure map, Tian Guanong had also used the same trick. If Nanlan hadn't coincidentally found out about his plot, perhaps she would have taken the phoenix hairpin with the treasure map to save him. His eyes glanced at the phoenix hairpin on Nanlan's bun. Against the backdrop of her black hair, the pearl on the hairpin looked exceptionally round and bright. Song Qingshu pondered. How can I steal the dragon and the phoenix from this hairpin and take out the treasure map inside without anyone noticing? Previously, he took it for granted that he knew the approximate location of the Chuangwang's treasure, so he could find it. However, the trip to Tubo made him realize how difficult it was to find a hidden cave in the boundless snow-capped mountains. Not to mention that Icy Snow's cousin also knew the approximate location of the treasure, so he deliberately built the Jade Pen Villa to secretly investigate. However, he didn't make any progress for decades. Therefore, when he saw this phoenix hairpin this time, Song Qingshu had a different idea. Speaking of which, it does have something to do with young master, Nanlan sighed faintly. Last time when Prince Bao's heir, Fu Kangon, came to Shanghai Pass to propose marriage, Guanong was also sent to protect him along the way. In the end, such a big thing happened. The princess died, the imperial envoy also died, and the heir fled back in a sorry state, almost losing his life there. During the trip to Shanghai Pass, not only did he not form an alliance with Prince Ping, but he also became his enemy. Prince Ping was very angry and began to thoroughly investigate the matter. After many investigations, he finally thought that it was a plot by the imperial court to destroy the relationship between him and Prince Ping. Then, he found out that before the incident, Guanong had met you in private, so he thought that he had betrayed Prince Ping, so he locked him up and tortured him. At the end of her story, she sobbed. Song Qingshu was instantly dumbfounded. But that time, we were just old friends meeting. We didn't talk about anything, did we? That's what Guanong said, but unfortunately, Prince Ping didn't believe him, Nanlan said. I can't believe that I'm the one who harmed Brother Tian. Song Qingshu muttered to himself. Prince Song, don't say that. It's Guanong's fate that this is a calamity. Sometimes, in the dead of night, Nanlan would indeed complain about Song Qingshu in her heart, but she also understood that this matter could not be blamed on Song Qingshu, so she could only sigh at her and her husband's bitter fate. Brother Tian has a wide circle of friends. If you can get an old friend to put in a few good words for you in front of Prince Bao, maybe Prince Bao will let him go. Although Song Qingshu had a feeling that he would be implicated even if he was lying down, he could not bear to watch this delicate woman continue to cry. So he quickly helped her come up with a plan. It would have been better if you didn't mention these people. Nanlan's breathing immediately quickened. A red flush appeared on her pink cheeks. She was obviously very angry. After Guanong's incident, I also had the same thought. I went to visit Guanong's old friend one by one, who used to be brothers with him, but who knew that these people would only pretend to agree on the surface. But in reality, they were just brushing me off. Listening to Madame's explanation of this matter just now, it must have been Brother Tian's friends in the bureaucracy who revealed this to Madame. They can't help you for now. Don't worry, Madame. When the storm has passed, they might be able to rescue Brother Tian. Song Qingshu consoled. Unexpectedly, Nanlan shook her head. Young master, you are a modest gentleman. She suddenly remembered that day at the inn, when the other party had suspected her of being frivolous. She immediately felt that it was strange to say this, but after a moment of surprise, she continued. Those people were usually very respectful to me. They called me Madam's sister-in-law. Madam's sister-in-law. I didn't expect that after Guanong was sent to prison. When they saw me, their words became frivolous. Some of them even made a move on me. Nanlan immediately stopped talking. Her face had already turned bright red. It was unknown whether it was from embarrassment or anger. As it turned out, Nanlan's beauty was very famous in Shang capital's bureaucracy. Many men coveted this beautiful and delicate wife of Tian Guanong. But usually with Tian Guanong around, No one dared to openly show their desire, but now that Tianguinong was sent to prison, all of them immediately revealed their true colors. The timid ones flirted with a few frivolous words. The bold ones even directly hinted to Nan Lan that Tianguinong would definitely die this time. Let her remarry themselves. Only a few people comforted her. Nan Lan was extremely disappointed with this group of people and decided to personally go to the prince's residence to plead for her husband. When she arrived at the prince's residence this morning, when the gatekeeper heard the reason for her visit, he shook his head like a rattle drum. Even when Nan Lan begged, he didn't dare to pass on the message for her. If not for her beauty, she would have already been chased away. Finally, she coincidentally met Fu Qinggan returning to the residence and saw a beautiful woman begging the gatekeeper. After asking, he found out that it was Tianguinong's wife, Nan Lan. Fu Qinggan had long heard of this subordinate's wife's reputation. It was a pity that he never had the chance to see her. Today, when he saw her, he was stunned and quickly invited her to the residence for a detailed discussion. Nan Lan originally thought that things had taken a turn for the better, but after entering the residence, Fu Qinggan didn't mention a word about Tianguinong. Instead, he changed the topic to her. Gradually, Nan Lan also understood his meaning, and her face turned pale. Finally, Fu Qinggan hinted that if she was willing to spend a night with him, he could consider saving her husband. Nan Lan forced a smile, saying that she would go back and think about it, then walked out of the prince's residence in a daze, coincidentally being seen by Song Qingshu. Taking advantage of others when they are down, shameless to the extreme. When Song Qingshu heard this, he immediately cursed. That's right, I saw foreign coming out of the prince's residence today. I wonder why. How could she bring up the deal that Fu Qinggan had proposed to another man? Nan Lan's face showed an awkward expression, and she opened her mouth several times, but didn't know how to start. In the end, she could only close her lips tightly and sit there with her head lowered, not saying a word. Father has just been imprisoned, and you're already seducing another man into the residence. As expected, very good. At this time, a female voice sounded from the doorway. Song Qingshu raised his head to look and saw a young girl standing at the doorway. Her skin was fair with a hint of red, and her eyelashes were very long, giving her quite a bit of color. Unfortunately, her face was full of harshness when she spoke, ruining her original beauty. Chapter 204. Shameless Coercion. Qingwen, you're back. Nan Lan stood up and hurriedly explained, this Gongzi was once your father's and my benefactor. Don't be rude. Don't act like a mother to lecture me. Who knows if he's your benefactor or lover? The young girl coldly snorted. You. Nan Lan pointed at her, her entire body trembling with anger. Song Qingshu, who was at the side, understood that this young girl should be Tianguinong's daughter, Tian Qingwen. The daughter of an ex-wife and the stepmother really are a pair of natural enemies. Either the east wind suppresses the west wind, or the west wind suppresses the east wind. From the looks of it, Nan Lan seems to be the weaker side. I can't be bothered with your trivial matters. Didn't you come to the prince's residence today? How was it? Did Wang Yi agree to let father go? Tian Qingwen impatiently waved her hand. No, I didn't see Wang Yi today. Nan Lan was angry in her heart and answered with some impatience. Chapter 206. How can I do that? How am I going to face your father in the future? Nan Lan's face was pale as she shook her head. Tian Qingwen sneered. Why are you pretending to be a chaste woman? Weren't you the wife of another man before you and my father? In any case, you're not pure. Accompanying the heir for a few nights can save my father's life. He definitely won't blame you when he comes out. Bastard, how can you speak to your elders like this? Song Qingshu couldn't stand it anymore and stood up to glare at Tian Qingwen. Tian Qingwen was startled by his aura and said with an unnatural expression, I'm speaking the truth. With that, he ran into the inner hall. Madam, don't mind her words. Children don't know any better. Song Qingshu quickly turned around to comfort Nan Lan. She's right. Nan Lan was a little dazed as she muttered to herself, Fine, I'll go find Fu Qinggan. Bullshit. Song Qing grabbed Nanlan's shoulders and shook her a few times. When she finally came back to her senses, he said sternly, Tian Qingwen doesn't know what his father is thinking. I believe that any man would rather die than let his wife exchange her body with another man for a chance to live. If you do this, I don't know if you can save Brother Tian, but I do know that Brother Tian will regret it for the rest of his life. But do I have to watch him die? Nanlan bit her lip and said, This happened because of me. I'll help you save him. Song Qing said in a low voice. Really? Nanlan was used to seeing men's ugliness. When Song Qing took the initiative to save her, her heart immediately warmed. Of course, but I need time. No matter how much Brother Tian suffers, you must endure it. Don't do anything stupid. I promise you, I'll definitely save him. Song Qing pondered. Saving Xia Qingqing was the same as saving her. What harm was there in saving Tian Guanong as well? Thank you, Prince Song. Nanlan was overjoyed and bowed. Madam, no need to be so polite. Song Qing subconsciously helped her up. A unique fragrance came to his nose. He was stunned. This woman seemed to be weightless. She was so light and soft, with both her arms held in the other's hands. Nanlan sensed that something was amiss. She discreetly stood up and took a step back, asking, May I know where young master lives now? How can this concubine find young master? She was counting on Song Qing to help her save her husband. Naturally, Nanlan didn't want to be unable to find him when she wanted to. I'm currently staying at the Ru family inn in the west of the city. If Madam needs anything, you can find me there. Song Qing got up and said goodbye. Madam, it's getting late. I'll go back first. I'll inform you if there's any news. By the way, it's best not to tell anyone about what happened today. I'm worried that it'll be harmful to Madam. I understand. I won't even tell Qingwen about young master's identity, lest I ruin young master's plans. Nanlan used to be a daughter of an official. Seeing that Song Qing, an official of the imperial court, had secretly come to Shengjing City, her mind was clear. Chapter 205. Invitation to battle. Song Qing had only taken 2 steps when he suddenly turned back. He took out 2 ingots of gold and handed them to Nanlan. After Brother Tian's accident, Madam went around asking people for help. You must have spent a lot of money. This is a token of my appreciation. I hope Madam won't refuse. Nanlan was startled. She hurriedly pushed the gold ingots back to him. Young master has acted righteously to save Guanong. I can't repay you anymore. How can I accept your gold? Please, benefactor, don't make things difficult for me. Madam, these are special times. Why be so particular? When Brother Tian comes out, it won't be too late to thank me properly. I really can't accept it. The 2 gold ingots were pushed back and forth between the 2 of them. In the end, their hands were even holding each other's. Nanlan finally reacted. There was a hint of embarrassment in her voice. Since young master is so kind, I'll accept it. She hurriedly pulled her hand back. Song Qing was taken aback and took the opportunity to take his leave. When he left the Tian mansion, he rubbed his fingertips in front of his eyes a few times. He could still feel the smooth and tender feeling of his hand from before. He praised inwardly and walked back to the inn. Darren, you want to explore the Bao Prince's residence at night? Zhang Kangyan asked in surprise when he heard Song Qingshu's plan. You can actually lower your voice. Song Qingshu was very depressed. The soundproofing of this inn wasn't very good. Zhang Kangyan hurriedly lowered his voice. Darren Song, this is too dangerous. Why don't I find a few brothers to accompany you? Are you going or not? Song Qingshu looked at him playfully. Seeing his awkward expression, he immediately laughed. I'm just teasing you. Your Qinggong isn't good enough. If you go, you'll only cause more trouble. I'll go alone. I'll come and go like the wind. I'll be back soon. After changing into his nocturnal clothes, Song Qingshu snuck near the prince's residence. Looking at the quiet prince's residence, he thought to himself, You, I hope you haven't done anything stupid. He arrived at a remote courtyard wall. Seeing that there was no one around, he tiptoed and quietly flipped over the wall. He avoided the patrolling guard along the way and slowly approached the inner residence. Hiding behind a fake mountain, Song Qingshu's expression immediately turned ugly as he watched the guards coming and going from afar. He didn't expect the security of the Bao Prince's residence to be so tight. He observed for a long time and realized that the other party's defense had no blind spots. He couldn't find a single gap. Although Song Qingshu's qigong was high, he was not an invisible person. As the saying goes, a wild goose leaves a sound. If he tried to force his way through, he could get rid of a few hidden guards and create an opening. However, with their patrolling frequency, they would be discovered by the other guards in a minute. After a minute, a stealthy investigation would become a forceful intrusion. Most importantly, Song Qingshu didn't think that he could find Xia Qingqing within a minute, let alone bring her away. Otherwise, he would definitely take the risk. After taking a deep look at the residence in the distance, Song Qingshu took a deep breath and turned to leave. The security of the Bao Prince's residence is so tight. Could it be stronger than the Forbidden City? Hearing what Song Qingshu said, Zhao Qixin and the rest immediately surrounded him. In my opinion, the Bao Prince's residence is so heavily guarded. It's actually easier to break into the Forbidden City. After all, the Forbidden City is too big. It's impossible to set up security at every step. As long as one's qigong is good enough, it's enough to sneak in through the gaps between the patrolling guards. The Bao Prince's residence is relatively smaller. Moreover, Prince Bao holds the military power. It's not difficult to build the prince's residence with a sentry every few steps and fortify the prince's residence like an iron bucket. Song Qingshu knew that it was impossible to sneak in, so he had to think of another way. A mere royal highness made the security of the residence even tighter than the palace. He, Zhang Kangyan, and Zhao Qixin looked at each other. The meaning in their words was self-evident. Lord Song, what do you plan to do next? Another guard asked. Tomorrow, we will openly enter the prince's residence as imperial envoys. Song Qingshu harumphed. Everyone, go to bed early and rest up. There might be danger in the future. The night passed uneventfully. The next day, Song Qingshu and his entourage left the city first. After putting on their official robes, they took out their banners and sent someone to inform the officials of Shengjing. Not long after, Shengjing sent someone to escort them to the Four Quarters Embassy. As the former capital of the Manchurian Qing, Shengjing had specially set up guest houses to receive envoys from various countries. The Four Quarters Embassy was one of them. Not long after the entourage settled down in the Four Quarters Embassy, Prince Bao, Hong Li, along with Crown Prince Fu Kanghan and the civil and military officials of Shengjing, came to have an audience. By the will of the heavens, the emperor decrees. Prince Bao led the soldiers to resist the Mongols and made a great contribution to the country. Here is the special bestowal. After reading the imperial edict, Song Qingshu folded it up and handed it to Prince Bao. Hong Li. Song Qingshu had long heard of Hong Li's name. This time, he finally saw Hong Li in person. He had a square face and wide ears. His upper lip was covered with a thick mustache, giving him a dignified air. The corners of his eyes drooped, adding a gloomy air. What big bags under his eyes? Song Qingshu secretly clicked his tongue. Of course, his mouth was praising the other party for his extraordinary valiance. I have long heard that Lord Song is a young hero. Seeing you today, you are even younger than I imagined. This prince is very impressed. Hong Li handed the imperial edict to his personal attendant and came over to hold on Song Qingshu's hand to show their closeness. Your Royal Highness has been guarding the Great Qing's northern border. Over the years, you have defeated the Mongols many times and shocked the world. You are indeed a pillar of the Great Qing Kingdom. In front of your Royal Highness, this lowly official dares not call himself a hero. Song Qingshu felt disgusted, but he had to feign civility. Ha! Lord Song is really good with words. No wonder you are favored by His Majesty at such a young age. Prince Bao laughed loudly. The two of them chatted in the room for a while. Hong Li stood up and bade farewell. Before he left, he said, Tonight, this prince will hold a banquet in the residence to welcome Lord Song. Lord Song must come. Thank you, Your Royal Highness. This lowly official will definitely be there on time. Song Qingshu bowed and saw him off. Night fell unknowingly as he handed over the complicated documents to the officials of Shang capital and discussed how to reward the hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the northern border. Song Qingshu was worried and could not wait to go to the prince's residence to attend the banquet. After Song Qingshu took his seat, Hong Li introduced the officials at the banquet in a clear voice. Today, this prince will introduce to everyone a young hero. This Lord Song is still young, but he is already the deputy chief of the imperial bodyguards of His Majesty. He is publicly recognized as the #1 expert in the capital. In the past, Lord Song was ordered to reorganize the Wulin world. His martial arts made all the sects submit to him wholeheartedly. He once defeated the Wudong expert, Reverend Chengxiu, with one strike of his sword and punched the Five Mountains Alliance master. He shocked the world. He is truly the world's top expert. The people below immediately whispered to each other. Suddenly, a cold laugh was heard. Rumors are always exaggerated. Your Royal Highness must not be deceived. Lord Song, that day you bullied Mount Tai's sect. Although I am no longer a disciple of Mount Tai's sect, I still remember the friendship between us. I will be so bold as to ask for advice from Lord Song and experience Lord Song's peerless divine skill. Song Qingshu turned his head in astonishment. He saw that the person who spoke was dressed like a Taoist. It was True Jade, whom he had met once at Shanghai Pass. He could not help but laugh and say, "Last time, didn't we exchange blows at Pingshuang Fu?" Thinking about how he was sent flying several meters with one palm strike, True Jade's old face turned red. He coldly snorted, "Last time, I underestimated Lord Song. This time, I will not underestimate the enemy again." True Jade was one of the top experts in the Sword of Blood Jade. In more than half of the book, his martial arts were higher than Yuan Qingji's. Last time, he was easily forced back by Song Qingshu because he had underestimated the enemy. Although his internal energy was not weak, it was not his strong point. What he was most proficient in was his strange movements combined with swift and fierce swordsmanship. He had traveled unhindered in Jianghu for dozens of years, yet he had rarely met a worthy opponent. This Taoist True Jade is a rare expert in this prince's Fu. Lord Song, you can give him a few pointers. Although Hong Li was smiling, his heart was cold. He had praised Song Qingshu as the #1 expert under Kangshi's command, but he had clearly stated that True Jade was only an ordinary expert in the Fu. If he lost, it was reasonable, but if he won, it would be a great loss of face for that child Kangxi. Seeing that not only did Hong Li not stop him, but he was also encouraging him, Song Qingshu knew that this fierce battle was unavoidable. Thinking about how he had changed to practice the joyous Diana, his current internal energy was far inferior to before. He could not help but frown. The third watch will be tomorrow morning. Everyone, do not stay up and wait. Chapter 207. Since Prince is interested, this lowly official will naturally accompany you. Does Prince wish to compete in inner strength or sabers and swords? Song Qingshu looked at True Jade with a smile. There are so many officials here who don't know martial arts. It would be too boring for us to compete in inner strength. Let's compete in sabers and swords. True Jade smiled mockingly. He had exchanged a palm strike with Song Qingshu before and knew that the other's inner strength was above his. If they competed in inner strength, he would probably lose. On the other hand, although the other was also famous for his sword techniques, if his own sword techniques were used together with his strange 100 lightning transformations, his chances of winning would be greater. Competing with sabers and swords. Song Qingshu revealed a trace of disappointment and pretended to reluctantly agree. Seeing this, True Jade was delighted. All right, but sabers and swords have no eyes and injuries will be unavoidable. On a good day like today, if either side is injured, it won't be good for either side. In my opinion, why don't we both compete with wooden swords? Wooden swords? True Jade froze. He thought that he was used to using swords and would be at a disadvantage if he switched to a wooden sword at the last moment. In addition, his sword was extremely sharp, and he was naturally unwilling to give up this advantage. I've heard that Lord Song is proficient in using wooden swords, yet you want me to give up my weapon and use a wooden sword. This is a bit. I believe that Lord Song's words are reasonable. Adept swordsmanship is incomparably swift and fierce, and Lord Song's swordsmanship is also famous throughout the world. When two tigers fight, one is bound to be injured. This is truly not in line with today's atmosphere. At this moment, another military official nearby spoke up. Furthermore, the sword in the perfected one's hand is a treasured sword that can cut through iron as if it were mud. You're taking advantage of him. Lord Song, my condensed jade sword is passable. I can lend it to you. Hong Li frowned when he heard this. These two were the top experts under him, but they had always disliked each other. He hadn't expected that they would undermine each other at this time. Song Qing-shu looked in the direction of the voice and saw that the other had thick eyebrows, large eyes, and a valiant aura. Behind him, Zhang Kangyan whispered, "Darren, this person is the fire judge Zhang Zhaozhong. His martial arts are high and not below true jades. The two have always been at odds." Zhang Zhaozhong, the strongest villain in the book and sword feud? Why do I feel that he has a faint intention of expressing goodwill toward me? Song Qing-shu suppressed the doubts in his heart and said, "Many thanks for Lord Zhang's good intentions, but Taoist priest True Jade's words are also reasonable. I am used to using wooden swords, so for him to give up the sword he is accustomed to using is truly an enormous advantage. In order to avoid an unfair victory, it would be better to do as Taoist priest said. He will use his sword and I will use a wooden sword." The 100 officials roared with laughter. Everyone could see that True Jade had taken advantage of the situation. True Jade blushed a bit and inwardly swore, "You are the one who is arrogant, so you can't blame me. The winner is king, and the loser is the thief. As long as I defeat you, who will remember what weapons we used in the competition? Please." Song Qing-shu had the wooden sword on his back as he smiled confidently. He knew that with the wooden sword in his hand, it would be even more difficult for his opponent to direct his inner energy towards him. All he had to do was to fully utilize the intricacies of his swordsmanship and avoid the sharp edge of his sword. Seeing that Chu Feng had no intention of making the first move, True Jade's expression turned grave as he drew his sword. With a wave of his sword, he attacked. Everyone saw him slide 3 steps to the right and use the move Cloudless Bright Moon before turning around. His body slightly crouched, and his sword stabbed out diagonally. When it was still 5 feet away from Song Qing-shu's right shoulder, he had already turned around and used the move Soaring Mountain Range. His momentum was extremely fast, and his sword was quickly retracted. Song Qing-shu stood motionless in his original position. Only his gaze constantly followed True Jade's figure. The tip of his sword also slightly swayed. True Jade, on the other hand, acted as if he was facing a great enemy. He unfolded his sword energy, and his body moved along with his sword. He turned left, then right, and the more he turned, the faster he turned. This swordsmanship was called Mount Tai's 18 Coils. It was created by a famous elder of the Mount Tai sect in the past. He saw that the 18 coils of Mount Tai's 3 gates were like sheep intestines, with a turn every 5 steps and a turn every 10 steps. It was extremely steep, so he incorporated the terrain into his swordsmanship. It was similar to the 8 trigrams roaming body palm of the 8 trigram school. The higher the 18 coils of Mount Tai went, the more dangerous it became. The more the sword moves turned, the more ruthless they became. Complemented by the lightning changes of 100 moves, the 18 coils of Mount Tai was displayed to the fullest. Zhang Zhaozhong's eyes narrowed as he watched from the side. Although his martial arts were on par with his movements were too exquisite. If we were to truly fight to the death, I'm afraid I wouldn't be his match. True Jade seemed to want to pierce through Song Qing-shu's body with each strike, but unfortunately, he gave up midway each time. Everyone watching was puzzled. Only True Jade was aware of his own difficulties. No matter how crafty and strange his swordsmanship was, The tip of Song Qingshu's sword always seemed to be enveloping his major acupuncture points. It was as if Song Qingshu had a clear understanding of his swordsmanship and was always able to grasp the fleeting flaw. Since Daozhong hasn't attacked for so long, then I will make my move. Song Qingshu faintly smiled. His sword suddenly thrust out 5 times in a row. Each sword move contained an ancient aura. True Jade cried out involuntarily, "Fifth great scholar sword." There were ancient pines on Mount Tai. According to legend, they were named the 5th great scholar pines during the Qin dynasty. The founder of Mount Tai had once comprehended a set of swordsmanship called the 5th great scholar sword. This set of swordsmanship was simple and unadorned, but there were strange changes hidden inside. More than 20 years ago, Yu Zhenzi had already mastered this set of swordsmanship, but now he saw that Song Qingshu's 5 moves were seemingly right, but actually wrong. They were quite different from what he had learned, but it was clear that they were much more brilliant than the original swordsmanship. True Jade hastily raised his sword to block. Suddenly, he let out a loud roar as his right knee was struck. He staggered and bent his right leg, causing him to kneel down. He hastily used his sword to prop himself up, saving himself from being thrown into a sorry state. "Thank you for letting me win." Song Qingshu withdrew his sword and retreated with a faint smile. Everyone saw that True Jade's swordsmanship was treacherous and almost like he was showing off. After besieging him for a long time, he didn't dare to make a move. On the other hand, Song Qingshu's moves were upright and dignified, yet he was able to determine victory and defeat in one move. Everyone was overwhelmed with shock. True Jade's martial arts were naturally clear to these colleagues. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the #1 expert in Shengjing, yet he was injured by the opponent's first move. From this, it could be deduced that Song Qingshu's martial arts were simply unimaginably high. They looked at Song Qingshu with respect and fear. True Jade's heart, however, was greatly dissatisfied. The opponent had suddenly changed the key points of Mount Tai's sword moves. In his haste, he didn't have time to think too much, so he had naturally used the swordsmanship of Mount Tai. Yet, True Jade had suddenly changed the direction of his sword, causing him to fall into a trap and be defeated. If he had used a sword technique from another sect, then no matter how exquisite the move, based on his cultivation and swordsmanship, he definitely wouldn't have lost so miserably. However, what Song Qingshu had used was indeed Mount Tai's sword technique, and it wasn't fake. Song Qingshu's attainments in swordsmanship were above his own. He knew that if they competed again, he would at most be able to endure a few more moves. In the end, he would still be defeated. In his heart, he was ashamed, angry, and alarmed. Seeing this, Hong Li's heart sank. Kangxi having such an expert under his command was truly a headache. He hastily stood up and said with a smile, "As expected, Lord Song's swordsmanship is superb. After Feng Qingyang's fall, I'm afraid the title of Sword Saint will fall on your distinguished self. Taoist True Jade swordsmanship is also exquisite. Men, give these 2 experts a reward." Prince is too serious. This lowly official doesn't dare to accept the title. In his heart, Song Qingshu disapproved of the title of Sword Saint. Even if he wanted to be called, he should at least be called Sword God. He thought of Sword God Shimen Shui Xue and Sword God Xie Xiaofeng. They were the role models of his generation. Those who were called Sword Saints didn't seem to have good endings. What Feng Qingyang? There was also the Sword Saint in Wind and Cloud. Although they were incomparably resplendent, they also quietly fell. Lord Song is too modest. Hong Li laughed and said, "We just watched a battle of blades and swords. Let's adjust it with a bit of chivalry and tenderness." Recently, this prince has taken in a new concubine who is good at singing and dancing. Today is a rare opportunity, so this prince will let her come out and perform for everyone to evaluate. Song Qingshu's heart thumped, and he said, "They're here." A melodious music rang out. Song Qingshu nervously looked towards the source of the sound. A group of singers dressed in palace attire slowly walked over. One of them was wearing a water-green gauze dress with a milky white, silver-threaded light gauze dress. A group of singers dressed in palace attire slowly walked over. One of them was wearing a water-green gauze dress with a milky white, silver-threaded light gauze dress. Her vermilion lips were red without makeup. Her willow eyebrows were black without makeup, and there was a vermilion dot on her forehead. She was charming and moving. An exceptionally luxurious golden ornament was inserted into her cloud-like black hair. With each step, it trembled. Pearls and jade intertwined with golden light, and tassels fell down and rippled. The hearts of all the men in the field also rippled along with that lightly swaying pendant. Her perfect facial features were meticulously arranged to form an absolutely beautiful outline. Under the faint shadow of the flowing light in her eyes was a completely natural and refined temperament. She was like a snow-white orchid at the bottom of a quiet valley. She exuded a sense of alienation and loneliness from her bones. Just by standing quietly in front of them, it could make people's hearts ache. If it wasn't Xia Qingqing, who else could it be? When she passed by Song Qingshu, Xia Qingqing acted as if she didn't know him. She didn't even look at him and walked straight into the field. She bowed slightly to Hong Li and said, "This concubine greets your highness." A trace of tenderness appeared on Hong Li's face. He stretched out his hand to help her up. "You may dispense with the formalities. The officers and soldiers have all worked hard. Qingqing, you should dance for them to express this prince's feelings." "Yes, your highness." Xia Qingqing smiled faintly. All the civil and military officials in the hall were instantly dumbfounded. They all quieted down, as if they had been captivated by her. Her jade-like hands moved gracefully, and her skirt fluttered in the wind. A pair of misty eyes seemed as if they wanted to speak. Light danced in the air. Her entire person was like a flower in the fog, hazy and faintly discernible, flashing with beautiful colors. However, it was also so far out of reach. Song Qingshu had no time to appreciate her graceful dance. He only felt sorrow in his heart. "Qingqing, I didn't think you would still take this step. Why didn't you ask me first? I could really help you get revenge." Her jade-like feet lightly tapped the ground. Xia Qingqing spun twice in the air. Her skirt turned into a beautiful disc. Coupled with her devastatingly beautiful appearance, it actually made people feel that she was both real and illusory. After landing, the song ended and the dance ended. She stood still and bowed before slowly retreating to the back of the hall. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He quietly stood up. Zhao Qixin asked in confusion, "Where does official Song wish to go?" Chapter 208. Hong Li held a banquet to entertain the imperial envoy. The guard of the entire Wang Fu could be said to be guarding the outside, but not the inside. After Song Qingshu left the banquet, he ran into a few patrols, but when they saw his official robes, they all nodded in acknowledgement and allowed him to walk. However, Song Qingshu was not an idiot. He did not think that the guards would still ignore him when he reached the inner courtyard of the Wang Fu. He hid his tracks along the way and finally found traces of Xia Qingqing by the lake. A woman stood there alone, staring at the water in a daze. "You came pretty fast." Hearing the voice behind her, Xia Qingqing seemed to have expected it and was not surprised. "Why are you waiting here alone?" Song Qingshu looked around. With her current status, she should not be alone. "I was waiting for you." Xia Qingqing turned around, a faint smile on her face. The beauty was still beautiful, but her status had changed. A hint of sorrow that was difficult to disguise flashed across Song Qingshu's face. "Why didn't you ask me before you made this decision? I would have told you the plan in my heart. After you heard it, you would not have chosen to leave me. I asked you many times." The wind ruffled her hair. Xia Qingqing stretched out a finger to tuck the messy strands behind her ear. She smiled slightly. "But every time, you would only say, 'Believe me, believe me.'" Hearing this, Song Qingshu stilled. It seemed to have been like that at the time. Xia Qingqing saw his reaction, and her expression became complicated. "All right, I'll give you another chance. Tell me your plan now." Song Qingshu immediately hesitated. That matter was too important and could not be leaked. She was now the Bao Wang Fei. "Never mind, I already know the answer." Xia Qingqing sighed quietly and did not speak further. Now that time has passed and your status is different, I naturally cannot tell you. Song Qing-shu had an impulse to disregard everything. But in the end, reason overcame everything. I understand, but I'm afraid this will be the last time we meet. You have your plans, and I have mine. I don't want to add to the waves, Xia Qingqing said calmly as she gazed at the lake in the distance. Isn't your plan to seduce Hong Li and sow discord between him and Kangxi? But do you really think that Hong Li can defeat Kangxi? Song Qing-shu sneered. Xia Qingqing was obviously stunned. Her face was as cold as ice. You can understand it that way, but this is my own business. I don't need anyone else to worry about it. She added in her heart, of course I know that Hong Li is no match for Kangxi. All right then, we'll never meet again. Song Qing-shu turned around and left resolutely. We'll never meet again. Xia Qingqing was momentarily absent-minded as she muttered to herself. A hint of bitterness flashed across her face. Returning to the banquet, Song Qing-shu was as merry as ever. He frequently got up to drink with Shengjing officials. He had been together with Wei Xiaobao and Dolong for a long time, calling each other brothers. His skill in making wine and meat friends had long been trained. He had reached perfection. When he noticed that Hong Li got up and left the banquet, he drank even more merrily. When he came out of the prince's mansion, he was already a puddle of mud. Old Zhao, what do you think happened to official Song? Why did he suddenly become so? Zhang Kangyan supported the drunken Song Qing-shu and looked at Zhao Qixin in shock. How would I know? He was fine before. Zhao Qixin was vomited all over his body. His expression was even more depressed. Haha, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about today. When we return to the capital, I'll promote you. Hearing their discussion, Song Qing-shu forced his eyes open and laughed foolishly. Since it's like this, why don't you vomit all over me too? Zhang Kangyan smiled bitterly. Ugh, I was joking. Official Song, don't take it seriously. Zhang Kangyan's wail came from the night sky. In the prince's mansion, in the Ripple Pavilion where the Vice Fujin lived. Your Highness, it's getting late. Please go back, Xia Qingqing said coldly. Qingqing, you're already my Fujin. Hong Li put on a smile and wanted to get closer. A cold light flashed. Xia Qingqing's golden snake sword was already pressed against his chest. She said coldly, Your Highness, if you've forgotten, I'll remind you again. This Fujin title is just a cover. Don't take it seriously. Also, don't call me that. Yes. Bin Wang was just joking with Madame Yuan. Hong Li took a few steps back in embarrassment. Today, Madame's dance at the banquet stunned the civil and military officials. Bin Wang also benefited from them and was fortunate enough to have a feast for my eyes. When I mentioned it to Madame that day, I never thought that Madame would actually agree. Our alliance does not include dancing for you. Don't do it again. Xia Qingqing added in her heart. This dance was not for you. Bin Wang is already very satisfied with just this once. Hong Li chuckled. Right, I heard that Madame's Golden Snake Camp has been in some trouble recently. Do you want Bin Wang to send someone to help Madame? No need. That was just my method to deliberately numb Kangxi. Otherwise, Kangxi will not tolerate a united Golden Snake Camp. Xia Qingqing shook her head and flatly refused. It turned out that Xia Qingqing had been moved by Luo Bing's words that day. She also felt that Song Qing-shu did not really want to help her take revenge. Moreover, the longer she was with Song Qing-shu, the more vague Yuan Chengji's figure became in her mind. She was afraid that one day, she would even forget to take revenge and could only choose to leave. However, she had followed Yuan Chengji to command the Golden Snake Camp for so long. She was no longer that unruly little girl who knew nothing and only liked to throw tantrums. Previously, because her husband had been killed, hatred had blinded her eyes. She had calmed down long ago. In her opinion, Luo Bing's vision was limited. Her plan was simply full of loopholes. Xia Qingqing was not as stupid as the people of the Red Flower Society. She would not easily give up her innocence for an illusory possibility. Xia Qingqing first went south to Shandong. Seeing that the Golden Snake Camp was in the midst of a fierce battle, she angrily took a group of trusted aides and went north. Shengjing. Hong Li was having a headache. Because of the matter with Princess Janning, he had a falling out with the Western Prince Wu Sangui. Losing Wu Sangui as an ally, he had hundreds of thousands of troops. The road south was blocked by Wu Sangui. To the north was the ferocious Mongolian kingdom. There was no way forward, and there were pursuers from behind. Of course, if he was willing to be a prince who ruled over an area, he could naturally guard his own land and live happily for decades. Unfortunately, he had always coveted the dragon throne in the capital. How could he be willing to be a prince who maintained his own success? Xia Qingqing's arrival made him overjoyed. She had brought him another way out, to ally with the Golden Snake Camp. The Golden Snake Camp would help him transport his troops from Lushanku to Tianjin by sea. The Golden Snake Camp would then mobilize their troops from Shandong and attack the capital together. In this way, they could completely bypass Wu Sangui's Shanhai Pass. Wu Sangui and the Liao Shao phone were fighting fiercely. By the time he could extricate himself, the Qing dynasty would already be in his pocket. The reason why Hong Li had never thought of sending troops from the sea was because his subordinates were not good at fighting on the water. The Bohai Sea was under the control of the Divine Dragon Island. The Divine Dragon Island had long surrendered to the Mongolians. If he set out from the sea, his hundreds of thousands of elite troops would only be buried in the stomachs of the fish. Allying with the Golden Snake Camp could solve all of this perfectly. In the early years, the Golden Snake Camp had mingled with the wind and the water. Today, they were still the overlord of the Yellow Sea. They were good at fighting on the water and could deal with the Divine Dragon cult. Because of this, Hong Li and Xia Qingqing hit it off and quickly formed an alliance. During this time, in order to discuss how to deal with the Divine Dragon cult and the specific details of their future cooperation, Xia Qingqing had to meet with him frequently. Hong Li was worried that a strange woman frequently entering and exiting the Wangfu would arouse the suspicions of those with ulterior motives. Thus, he placed Xia Qingqing in the Wangfu with the identity of Vice Fujin to deceive people. That's good. Although Hong Li still had doubts in his heart, he was clear that the other's husband was killed by Kangxi. Whether it was for the benefit of the Golden Snake Camp or for her personal grudge, there was no need for her to lie to him. Changing the topic, he said, "By the way, Madame Yuan, did you see the imperial envoy sent by the court today?" The imperial envoy? Xia Qingqing's heart skipped a beat. She said calmly, "I saw him. He looks like a pretty boy. He doesn't look like anything special. I presume he doesn't have any real skills." "Madame Yuan, if you think like that, you are gravely mistaken," Hong Li said in a low voice. After Wei Xiaobao died, Song Qinshu has become Kangxi's #1 confidant. He has the vague posture of aspiring to the throne of the #1 expert of the Qing dynasty. No matter how high his martial arts are, he is still just a knife. What big waves can he cause? Xia Qingqing deliberately put on a disdainful expression. When martial arts reach a certain level, it is no longer a knife. "Madame Yuan, do you still remember how your husband died?" The Golden Snake King's martial arts were very high. He had hundreds of thousands of troops under his command. He was a powerful overlord, but he still died under one blow from Dongfang Bubi. His imperial ambitions were gone in the blink of an eye. Hong Li deliberately looked at Xia Qingqing's expression. As expected, Xia Qingqing's expression changed greatly. "One day, I will definitely kill Dongfang Bubi to avenge Big Brother Yuan. But how many Dongfang Bubi are there in the world?" The late-night visitor of Song Qingshu, though, his martial arts are not bad. If he wants to assassinate your highness, I'm afraid he is still not strong enough. There are many experts in this prince's residence. Naturally, there is no need to be afraid of him. Hong Li patted his chest heroically. But at such a young age, he already has the bearing of a grandmaster. It is hard to guarantee that in the future, he will not grow into a terrifying existence that can kill a person in 10 steps and leave no trace behind. We must be on guard. Your Highness, you mean to take advantage of the fact that he is not fully matured to strike first? Xia Qingqing asked expressionlessly. But I'm afraid this will alert the enemy and make Kangxi vigilant. The gains do not make up for the losses. I think it is the opposite. Hong Li sneered. According to the spy's report, Kangxi has already asked him to establish a secret intelligence organization, the Stick Office. If it is really established, I'm afraid that in the future our actions will be restricted and we will always be in a passive position when marching and fighting. Hee hee, as the saying goes, there's a road to heaven, but you don't take it. There is no door to hell, but you come. This time, he has walked right into the trap. How can this prince let go of such a great opportunity? But he is still an imperial envoy. If your highness were to make a move, the situation would be unsalvageable. Xia Qingqing frowned anxiously. Don't worry, this prince has a brilliant plan. Hong Li smiled mysteriously. Song Qing-shu was escorted back to the Four Quarters Embassy by his subordinates. Just as he got off the carriage, an imperial guard came forward and quietly said, "Lord Song, a beautiful woman came to look for you." A beautiful woman? Song Qing-shu's eyes widened slightly as he asked in a daze, "Did she report her name?" The guard respectfully replied, "She did not, but when she came, she was in disguise and seemed to be intentionally concealing her tracks. My brothers felt that she must have something important to discuss with you, so we took the liberty of bringing her into the Four Quarters Embassy. She is currently waiting inside." Chapter 209. Song Qing-shu had only run a few steps when he tripped and fell straight to the ground. Fortunately, the bodyguard beside him was quick to react and caught him so that his face didn't come into close contact with the ground. It was just that after tossing and turning, Song Qing-shu became tipsy and fell into a deep sleep. What should we do? Zhang Kengyan and Zhao Qixin stared at each other, not knowing what to do for a moment. Let's help His Excellency to the bed to rest first, then help him clean up. In the end, the two of them reached an agreement and hurriedly helped him to the bedroom. After putting Song Qing-shu on the bed with great difficulty, Zhang Kengyan suddenly felt alarmed. He hurriedly turned his head and shouted, "Who is it?" Zhao Qixin was also startled and hurriedly pulled out his saber, vigilantly looking at the shadows in the corner. "What's wrong with Prince Song?" At this time, a weak female voice sounded from a corner. Hearing this voice, Zhang Kengyan and Zhao Qixin unconsciously relaxed. A woman with such a gentle voice, even if she wasn't a weak and delicate young miss, she couldn't be an assassin or a bandit. With the help of the light, they saw a gentle and graceful young married woman standing on the side of a chair. Her entire body was wrapped in a snow-white cloak. Although her face looked tired, it couldn't hide her delicate and charming appearance. Zhang Kengyan was stunned. "Madam, you are?" Nan Lan thought to herself. "If I say that I have something to ask to see Song Qing-shu, they might look down on me and chase me away. I might as well scare them." During this period of time, Nan Lan was used to seeing the faces of Yamen officials, so she naturally had her guard up. "I am Song Qing-shu's good friend. Is he drunk?" Nan Lan couldn't help but frown when she smelled the smell of alcohol in the room. "Good friend." Zhang Kengyan and Zhao Qixin looked at each other strangely and immediately put on a flattering smile. I understand. They all thought to themselves, a woman is alone in Lord Song's bedroom in the middle of the night. Isn't the relationship between the two self-evident? But looking at the woman's hair bun, she seemed to be a married woman. He didn't expect Sir Song to have such a taste. But such a beautiful woman. Even if she was married, there were very few men who wouldn't be moved. Sir Song was really lucky, but he didn't know which man was going to be a tortoise. "Go prepare some hot water and towels. Leave this to me." Nan Lan took off her cloak and placed it on a chair. She quickly walked over and rolled up her sleeves, revealing her two fair arms. The two guards swallowed their saliva. Yes. Seeing her ordering them around like a hostess, Zhang and Zhao didn't feel disgusted. Instead, they felt that it was natural. They hurriedly retreated out of the room and went to get hot water. "Old Zhang, did you see that woman's skin just now? It's so tender that you could squeeze water out of it." Sensing that they were quite a distance away, Zhao Qixin nudged Zhang Kengyan with his shoulder. "Silence. Are you tired of living? That's Lord Song's woman. But then again, she does have big breasts and perky buttocks, a ravishing beauty." Zhang Kengyan winked. The two men let out a series of sweet dreams. A sinister smile. Taking the basin of hot water from the guard, Nanlan closed the door with a bang. She noticed the lecherous smiles in the eyes of the two and understood that they had misunderstood her relationship with Song Qing-shu. But she had no choice but to come to look for Song Qing-shu at such a late hour. During the day, she had inquired about a piece of news. Her husband had been subjected to an inhumane torture today and had lost most of his life. Feeling anxious, she hurriedly ran to the Ru family inn in the west of the city. She discovered that Song Qing-shu had already left. After asking around, she learned that he had already moved into the Four Quarters Embassy using his identity as an imperial envoy. Thus, she hurriedly rushed over. Afraid that her husband's friends in the bureaucracy would recognize her, Nanlan intentionally wrapped herself in a cloak, turning from a graceful lady into a plump peasant woman. Unexpectedly, the guard Song Qing-shu had left in the Four Quarters Embassy was a clever man. Upon seeing her beautiful face and the attire she was wearing, he hurriedly led her in upon hearing that she was looking for Lord Song. However, there were too many people entering and leaving the Four Quarters Embassy, so for safety's sake, the guard led her to Song Qing-shu's bedroom to wait for his return. Yet, she had waited for so long. Prince Song, Prince Song? Nanlan lightly shook Song Qing-shu's shoulders, but other than muttering a few words, the other party didn't move at all. Sigh, Nanlan sighed deeply. No matter what, she had to find a way to wake him up today. Otherwise, who knew if her husband's life would be spared tomorrow? After wringing the towel dry, Nanlan carefully wiped the filth from the corner of his mouth. Then, she changed the towel and began wiping his forehead, neck, and other parts of his body. Song Qing-shu's burning body finally calmed down. Nanlan stretched out her hand to nudge him lightly as she called out, Prince Song, wake up. I beg of you. I really have no other choice. I had already decided to look for Fu Qinggan, but I refused to give up and decided to visit you first. Who could have known that you would? As she spoke, sorrow welled up in Nanlan's heart, and her shoulders trembled as she began to sob. Unstoppable tears flowed down her cheeks, and drop by drop, they fell on his Song Qing-shu's face. Song Qing-shu's face twitched, and he groggily opened his eyes. He didn't know if it was because he was drunk, but Song Qing-shu blinked a few times, but he still couldn't clearly see the appearance of the woman in front of him. He could only feel from the outline that it was an extremely beautiful woman. Yu, is that you? The fuzzy feeling from before surfaced in his heart. That warm and caring wipe and the sad sobs by the bedside made Song Qing-shu subconsciously think of her as Xia Qingqing. Only she would wipe his body, and only she would cry for him. Prince Song, you're awake? Seeing him slowly wake up, Nanlan wiped the tears from her eyes and smiled happily. You, it seems that you really can't let go of me, and secretly came here to find me. Song Qing-shu subconsciously grabbed Nanlan's hand and said in a daze, Yu, are you Prince Song's sweetheart? Nanlan was startled, and hurriedly tried to pull her hand away from his. Prince Song, you've got the wrong person. I'm not Miss Yu, I'm Madame Tian, Nanlan. Feeling the other's attempt to pull her hand away, Song Qing-shu's grip tightened. Yu, don't leave me. This time, no matter what you say, I won't let go. Yu, your hand is so slippery. The heat from the other's palm made Nanlan feel embarrassed and angry, but Song Qing-shu's hand was like an iron hoop. Nanlan used all the strength in her body, but she couldn't move an inch. Don't go be some Fujin. That old pervert Hong Li doesn't have the ability to help you get revenge. You have to believe me. I will definitely help you get revenge. Song Qing-shu's next words made Nanlan's body stiffen, and she couldn't help but tremble. Fujin? Hong Li? Could it be that Song Qing-shu had an affair with His Highness's Fujin? Nanlan immediately fell into a deep fear. Before one wave had subsided, another wave had arisen. Now that she knew such a big secret, she would either be silenced by Song Qing-shu or by Prince Bao. Her whole body immediately went limp. In a daze, Song Qing-shu could only smell the unique fragrance of a woman's body wafting into his nose. His hand was unusually soft and smooth, and he felt as if he was touching a soft body in his arms. Instantly, lust surged, and he pulled the other party into his arms. He opened his mouth and moved closer to the other party's face. You, I've been too good to you in the past, but in the end, you've become like that. I've decided that I won't give in to you anymore. Nanlon dodged with all her might. When she heard his words, she was angry and amused at the same time. You've got the wrong person. I'm not your Yu. How is that possible? Other than Yu, which other woman can be so fragrant and so soft? That day in Yangzhou City, other than the last step, we've already done everything that a husband and wife can do. Don't be shy. Today I want to make up for the regret of that day. Song Qingshu buried his head into her lapel. He only felt a rush of fragrance and immediately became even more intoxicated. I've heard another secret that I shouldn't have. Nanlon sighed. Feeling his movements, she immediately blushed. She was so angry that she bit him on the cheek. Ouch! Song Qingshu cried out in pain. Yu, why did you bite me? I've already said that I'm not Yu. Nanlon was so angry that she roared in his ear. Then who are you? Song Qingshu was stunned after hearing this. He stopped moving and raised his head to carefully look at the face of the woman in front of him. I'm Madame Tian. Nanlon was pressed under his body and felt extremely uncomfortable. She felt the hot breath coming out of his nose and quickly turned her head to the side. Who is Madame Tian? Song Qingshu's eyes revealed a puzzled look. I'm Tian Guénong's wife, Nanlon. Nanlon bit her lower lip and turned her head to glare at the man in front of her. She really didn't know if he was really crazy or just pretending. Nanlon, I remember now. That fair-skinned, beautiful, voluptuous young married woman with a willowy waist and long legs. Yeah, could it be that I'm thinking about her every day? Otherwise, why would I have this kind of dream? It's too unharmonious. Song Qingshu looked at the woman under him in a daze and giggled foolishly. You're not dreaming. Hearing this kind of evaluation of herself in his heart, Nanlon was about to go crazy. She originally thought that he was a gentleman, but it turned out that he was secretly thinking about her. After staring at him for a while, Nanlon finally couldn't resist his invasive gaze and turned her eyes elsewhere. I hope I can have this kind of beautiful dream every day. Song Qingshu lowered his head and kissed her cheek, feeling extremely carefree. She was surrounded by a strong masculine scent. His beard pricked her face, and Nanlon felt a warm flow between her legs. For a moment, she even had the urge to not resist and let go of her body and mind to let him ravage her. However, the shame of a woman made her come back to her senses. She calmly said, Song Qingshu, I know you're awake. So you still saw through me. Song Qingshu's confused expression immediately cleared up, revealing two clear eyes. Then why did you come down? Nanlon felt that she was almost unable to breathe under his pressure. Chapter 210. You. Nanlon glared at him. Let's get back to the main topic. Although I didn't mean it in the beginning, I still took advantage of you. Do you no longer believe me? Song Qingshu's expression changed as he asked in a deep voice. Of course, I thought you were a good person, but I didn't expect you to be no different from other men. In the end, you're all lusting after my body. Nanlan's tone carried a hint of indifference. She felt that she had really experienced the various ways of the world and seen the dirty side of the people. Men use their abilities to conquer women, and women use their looks to please men. It's a matter of course. What's wrong with that? Song Qingshu replied. He lowered his head and looked at her. Are you planning to look for Fukingan? That's right. Nanlon held back the tears in her eyes. It's a deal anyway. It doesn't matter who you do it with. How about you sell it to me? Song Qingshu let go of her hands. His fingers gently slid across her delicate eyebrows. He thought bitterly in his heart. It's fine if it's other men, but not the men in Prince Bao's mansion. With a slap, Nanlon retracted her palm and sighed softly. Fine. Don't worry. I'll help you save your husband. Song Qingshu unbuttoned a few of her buttons. He suddenly stopped and said, Nanlon didn't dodge this time. She stared at his eyes carefully and nodded slightly. I trust you. Song Qingshu smiled and put his hand inside. Nan Lan's breathing quickened. You're not allowed to mention what happened tonight in front of Gueno. Nan Lan grabbed his wrist and stopped him from touching her. Her cheeks were red. I'm not a fool. Song Qingshu sneered. He grabbed her wrist and pressed it against the headboard of the bed. Nan Lan closed her eyes in resignation. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly, showing that her master's heart was not as calm as she appeared. Do women in your era like to close their eyes when they do this kind of thing? Open them and look at me. Song Qingshu said rudely. I won't. Nan Lan's voice trembled, but there was a trace of determination in it. If you insist on doing this, then I will use some embarrassing positions on your body. Song Qingshu whispered a few words in her ear. Nan Lan was so scared that she immediately opened her eyes. That's more like it. Song Qingshu smiled in satisfaction. He reached down and found the bow on the ribbon on her waist. With a light tug, he untied the ribbon and threw it on the ground without hesitation. He held Nan Lan's legs in the crook of his arm and pressed his whole body on top of her. After an unknown amount of time, Nan Lan bit her lips and endured the shameful feeling. In the end, she begged, Can you be gentler? I'm a little. She didn't wait for her words to finish before she turned around and stopped talking. She's not my wife anyway, so I won't feel bad using her. You bastard. The next day. Chapter 209. A deal between two consents. When Nan Lan tiptoed back to the Tian residence, Tian Qingwen was sitting in the main hall, looking at her with a faint smile. You were still full of worry yesterday, but today your little face is beautiful and beautiful. You look radiant. My great stepmother, did you enjoy Marshal Fu's nourishment last night? Nan Lan blushed and snorted coldly. Don't worry about it. Your father will be fine. She then walked towards her bedroom. Right now, she just wanted to have a good sleep and forget all her worries. All right, the main reason was that her little enemy had tormented her the whole night yesterday. She was really too tired at this time. In a secret base of the Red Flower Society in Shengjing, Chen Jiala looked at the old man in front of him with an anxious expression. Godfather, Song Qingshu saved fourth brother and the others' lives that day. That's right, old leader. Although Song Qingshu hindered our operation that day, he still saved our lives in the end. Zhao Banshan didn't have any ill feelings towards Song Qingshu. Fool, this old man spent a lot of effort to use my connections in the southern Shaolin Temple to lure that terrifying old monster away from the Forbidden City. You were just about to kill Kanshi. If he didn't run out, Hunchback Zhang wouldn't have died, the black and white impermanents wouldn't have betrayed you, and you wouldn't have been captured. It's not clear whether he harmed you or saved you. The old man was the former head leader of the Red Flower Society, Yuanting. A few years ago, he passed on his position to his adopted son, Chen Jiala, and gradually hid behind scenes. That's right. Have you found the two traitors, the black and white impermanents? Yuanting asked the 12th leader. The 12th leader of the Red Flower Society, Shi Shuangying, was a disciple of the Limitless Sect and was in charge of the Red Flower Society's punishment hall. Reporting to Old Leader, not long ago, a disciple found that the black and white impermanence brothers seemed to be hiding in the Qingcheng sect. Shi Shuangying replied respectfully. The Qingcheng sect. Yuanting's brows furrowed. That's their sect. It's not unexpected for them to hide there. Let them live for now, and we'll settle this account in the future. Yes. The hearts of the leaders in the hall trembled. Were we just now? Oh, to deal with Song Qingshu. Yuanting sat down on the main seat and said earnestly, even if it's not a personal grudge against the Red Flower Society, from the perspective of the great cause, Song Qingshu must be eliminated. Right now, he's the most favored person in Kanshi's eyes. Unlike the ignorant and incompetent Wei Xiaobao from before, he's a top-notch expert. Presumably, you've all experienced it in the Imperial Palace last time. The expressions of the leaders who had participated in the assassination on the night of the full moon changed. On that day, Song Qingshu's martial arts had indeed left an unforgettable mark on them. Head leader, third brother Zhao, don't be fooled by Song Qingshu's small kindness and small favors. When Tai Lai stood up, do you know why that little thief Song Qingshu was willing to save us back then? Zhao Banshan froze, thinking, wasn't he asked by an old friend? Yu Yutong's expression also changed. That day, when Song Qingshu used fourth sister-in-law as bait, he almost agreed. He couldn't help but look guiltily at Wen Tailai. Wen Tailai angrily said, "That day, Song Qingshu, that little thief, only coveted my family's Luo Bing. In order to obtain her, he used third brother Zhao's and 14th brother's lives to threaten me, forcing me to choose between brotherly love or husband and wife love. I had no choice but to give my wife to him in exchange for third brother's and 14th brother's lives." What? As soon as these words came out, everyone in the room slammed the table and stood up, bursting into an uproar. Shameless, extremely despicable. Beast in human form, Luo Bing didn't agree. Instead, her expression was complicated. She had already known of this matter in the imperial palace. When Song Qingshu had taken the promissory note written by her husband and placed it in front of her, a barrier had formed between this loving husband and wife. Furthermore, that day, Song Qingshu had already completely entered her body. Luo Bing had never dared to tell Wen Tailai about this matter. Later, when she saw her husband, she only lied to him that she had escaped to a private residence outside the imperial palace to recuperate. She didn't mention that she had been living in the imperial palace and had been on Song Qingshu's bed. Absolutely preposterous. To think that I had thought he was a young hero who had gone astray. Zhao Banshan cursed angrily. Yu Yutong's expression also changed greatly. He thought that it was fortunate that he hadn't agreed that day. Otherwise, if they confronted each other in the future, he wouldn't have the face to walk Jianghu anymore. Foster father, your son is slow-witted. In this matter, I will follow foster father's orders. We must kill that dog thief Song Qingshu and avenge her brothers. Chun Jialuo's handsome face was flushed with anger. Good, but there is a problem. Song Qingshu's martial arts are too high. It is said that yesterday he easily defeated Shungjing's #1 expert, Yu Zhenzi. Many of you have seen Yu Zhenzi's martial arts. How do you compare to him? Yu Wanning's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he swept the room. The room suddenly fell into a deathly silence. After a long time, Taoist priest Wu Qin opened his mouth and said, "Several years ago, I fought with Yu Zhenzi and was defeated after 130 moves. If he used his unique Qigong, lightning steps 100 changes, I would only be defeated even faster." Taoist priest Wu Qin is the #1 swordsman in the society, but even he is not Yu Zhenzi's opponent. To deal with Song Qingshu, whose martial arts are far superior to Yu Zhenzi's, I'm afraid. Wu Zhuge's Su Tianhong didn't finish his words, but everyone present understood what he meant. Tianhong, you are the brains of our Red Flower Society. In your opinion, what should we do? Chun Jialuo asked. Since we can't defeat him with force, we can only defeat him with intelligence. Su Tianhong smiled slightly. Ow! Chun Jialuo was puzzled. I'm afraid the key lies with fourth sister-in-law. Su Tianhong looked at Luo Bing awkwardly and smiled. What? Luo Bing was absent-minded. She thought, Song Qingshu is a few years younger than her. How did he train in martial arts that can make the entire Red Flower Society pale? She couldn't help but stare blankly when the topic suddenly shifted to her. Seventh brother, what do you mean? Wen Tailai's voice was difficult to conceal his anger. This. Su Tianhong hesitated for a long time, but in the end he couldn't say it. Chapter 209. A deal between two willing Tailai. Don't make things difficult for Tianhong. This old man will speak for him. Since ancient times, a gentleman uses his wits instead of his strength. Since we can't defeat him with force, we could defeat him with intelligence. You said it before, that little thief is a greedy and lecherous person. He's infatuated with Bing Er's beauty. We can act from here and consign him to eternal damnation. Yu Wanning coughed and stood up. Old branch leader, do you want my wife to use a honey trap on that evil thief, Song Qingshu? When Tailai's breathing quickened, his knuckles cracking. It was obvious that he was extremely angry. I know this is very difficult for you. Yu Wanning glanced at him, but as long as we can restore the Han family's empire, We are not afraid of losing our lives and spilling our blood. What does it matter if we sacrifice a little beauty? For the great cause, if old branch leader wants my head, this one won't even blink and offer it with both hands. But if you want this one to offer my wife, please forgive me for not being able to do it. When Tai said resolutely, When Tai, are you really so muddle-headed that you can't distinguish right from wrong? You should know what is righteousness and what is trifling. Yu Wanning's face was gloomy. Of course I know. This kind of thing didn't happen to old branch leader. Of course you can say it easily. When Tai was angry and his words didn't seem very respectful. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.